down. I love it.
What did?
Streamlabs.
It's
all right.
I'm looking at stream right now.
We'll put the two VODs together. I'm telling you, it just shut down on my computer, so it's back up now. But
I mean, we're not even really starting anyway.
Yeah.
It's all right. I want to know why that.
All right.
I am so.
See.
Just as a primer, how much like stuff ties into Halo Infinite? And do you have any? This isn't for the stream. This is for me. Fuck the stream. Do you have like anything that you might be speculating could be like hints to something? Don't tell me what. Just give me a little. Just tell me yes or no.
It feels like they intentionally tried to keep it very separate from the plot of the game to avoid having a lot of people complain about it being like a must-read.
Don't do this to me. Don't break my heart now. Not in front of others.
It definitely has a tie, but I think he's right in that they definitely made it feel kind of like a separate mission. I was going to bring this up on the stream, and I might again, but you know how they pushed the publication date back like a few weeks back from the original date, and I was thinking about them like that's really weird when the book was so close to launch, and then I realized I think they may have taken something out of the book. I don't know what it is, and I don't know why I had this feeling, but reading it through a second time, I was like, I bet they took some stuff out. They didn't want
twice.
Yeah, well, I didn't.
Overachiever.
Well, the second time wasn't like I was kind of like flipping through the second time to like make sure I got all the points. But like I'm saying is, I feel like maybe they took a few things away, or maybe something small because they didn't want that coming out that far away from the game's launch.
Yeah,
but I don't know. Does that make sense?
No, that makes total sense. I think that's a good point. It's so weird, their marketing campaign. I feel like it's just a mess because they're like, okay, cool, all these things that we were going to show off now, we don't want to show off now, but we have to because we made these agreements with these companies.
From talking to one of the 343 developers that will be with
Wolf, try to speak a little more clearly into your mic.
Your
it's
mic is
hard
a little
to hear.
crackly, bro.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
annoying.
Electronic static. Hey, epic. Oh, the alerts work. Yes.
Nice.
I just got a notification from Steam saying there's a new MCC development update, so that's interesting
Nice.
timing.
They added Halo Infinite.
Wow.
You figure out how to make us moderators on that?
I did not, but I will. I will get on that. I don't foresee anybody, being too rowdy. If you're out there, don't do it.
We got the security bots.
Don't do it.
Will, if you're out there.
Oh no! Imagine. I do have the auto mod. There's a couple different settings for auto mod. I do have the auto mod set to, grab some stuff.
Nice.
What's up?
Tommy, do you have red hair? Or is that
Do
just
I
the
have
light?
red hair? I wish. That's the light, dude. I have I used to have really dark hair. Now it's more dirty blonde than anything.
Oh, ginger. Ugh.
Fair enough. What up, Jera? So now that you're back, I think we're good to get started. All right. So what is up, guys? Everybody watching? Did you start your stream, by the way, Jera?
I sure diddly did, Neighborina.
Oh, fuck yeah. So what is up, everybody? Welcome to our Shadows of Reach spoiler talk podcast of podding and casting.
Are you guys cool with me sharing the screen for the Discord?
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely.
I don't care.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Whatever.
Word.
Just
came up here. Hello.
For those of you that don't know, I am Tom. The question Tom, whatever you want to call me, Tom, whatever. I think we'll start off introducing staff for the server, I guess. So go ahead, guys. Do your thing. Make it quick. Let's just get right into the meat of it.
All right, Rex, you go first since you're the.
Hey guys, what's going on? I am Ignivirix or Rex. I am currently the one streaming on the Twitch account. What's up, guys? I'm an admin of the Ark, along with a couple of our other senior staff in here as well. Jamal.
All right. Dragon, do you want to go?
I'll go. All right. So I'm Dragon, the current owner and admin of the server as of right now. So, hi guys, how y'all doing?
Do you not have sheets? Is that
Yo.
just a mattress?
Oh, that's
He's in
there's the
college.
spare bunk
He's
in
in
my
college.
room.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's
college,
in college.
My
Sure,
laptop
sure,
on
he's
my
in
bed right
college.
now.
college life.
I don't know.
Jamal,
Yeah. Anyway.
you're up.
All right, what's up, everyone? I'm Jamal. I'm a fellow admin of the ARC server. The Jets are 0-7 and about to be 0-8. That's how I'm doing.
Be like that.
Lore Masters, you guys want to go?
Yeah, sure. Sai, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I'm Geffen MSIV. I'm one of the lore masters on the ARC who's been doing the lore Tuesday and Thursday segments for a while now. Precursor?
Hi, Miss Precursor. I'm the other lore master with Geffen. I'm kind of the newer one, and generally just share like lore posts on the lore chat. You're on the arc.
Can I jump in there?
Yeah,
Yeah, hey, I'm Noel. Don't have my cam up because of computer issues. I'm a programmer. I work on bots for the ARC server.
Dope.
Cool. And special guest can go ahead.
Is that me?
Yes, sir.
I mean, I don't know. Is it?
Is it?
You're special. Go
Special.
ahead.
I'm Jared Sunder. I'm a content creator. I like Halo. Hi, how are you?
Me
Very
too.
good.
I mean,
Nice. You're in the right place, pal.
it's to the point, yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
The podcast.
All right, Shirley, Wolf.
I'm Shirley. I'm the director of art of Project Autumn, a Halo fan game. Iowa, our project lead, was going to be here tonight. He couldn't make it, so I'm filling in both of our roles.
Hey.
That's how we do it.
And Wolf, did you go?
Mr. Wolf.
I don't.
Hello.
What?
I'm
I heard him for a second.
Excuse me.
That's a good introduction.
I think he said hi.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Right.
Oh, what?
Well,
And
we're
then we
happy.
Wolf
got
go
Halo
Burr.
VFX.
Yes.
Hey. I'm head of VFX. I just make like CG VFX short episodes for a mini series on YouTube.
Nothing crazy.
Nothing crazy, you know.
Nothing crazy.
Oh.
All right, cool. And
Amazing.
joining us later, hopefully, will be Installation 00 and a couple other peeps. But we'll just go with the flow and see who comes and who doesn't. So I guess we'll start off just with general opinions of the book. Disclaimer: some of us have not finished the book, including myself, because adulting.
Very
true.
But for those of you that have finished the book, which I believe is Miss Precursor, Sive, and Jera, why don't you guys start off just like general thoughts or like how you feel about the book?
I just took the liberty of starting. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go for it. Dude. I don't care.
I thought that
Get started, finish it.
I thought it was like an 8.5 out of 10. I thought it was really, really good. And I don't think it's a prequel to Halo Infinite like I think a lot of people were expecting. But I definitely think it's kind of like how Game of Thrones Season 6 was sort of setting the table for the end game of the show. I think that's basically what the book was meant to be.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Right.
Precursor, you were talking about something similar before, about the delay. You might as well bring that up now with your own opinions of the book.
Okay. Yeah, I think 8.5 is a fair rating. I really, really liked it. Part of that is the book is not only well written by Troy Denning, it's very, I guess, palatable and fan pleasing because there's a lot of fan favorite characters in there. So like it's hard to dislike, right? Because you got obviously Blue Team, you got Lasky. How often do you get all these characters in a book together, which is great. I did have a feeling that something is missing from the book. And what I mean by that is the book, once Halo Infinite was announced it was going to be delayed, Shadows of Reach was pushed back its release by a few weeks, which tells me from a publication standpoint that they wanted to basically reprint the books or take a section out. And my belief is that there's probably something in there related maybe to the Banished and the Keepers, or whether it's to discussions about what the mission they were on for Halsey. It kind of felt like it ended really quickly. I was like, wait, that's it? I think they took something out because they didn't want to give it away before Infinite's release. That's my thoughts. But I liked it.
I could see that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Go for it. Were you gonna say something?
I'm trying to remember what I was gonna say. I lost it. It's gone forever.
Shirley.
Well, goodbye.
I know. Well, Shirley's going to be doing double duties. He's talking for himself. He's also talking for Iowa, who couldn't make it, which is a shame. But we trust Shirley to, speak proudly for Iowa. So I know, after talking with both of you and Iowa, I know that you guys have quite some different thoughts on the.
Yeah, we're both a little more critical, I'd say, over the book. I know he had his own problems with it. I kind of felt, well, and it's something I've talked to him about as well. It kind of feels too distant. Like 343 tried too hard to sort of course correct from sort of the previous novels, and like Halo 5 came out. A lot of people are complaining that not a lot of things in the game made sense if you hadn't read certain novels, and if people didn't like that you kind of had to read the things to understand. I feel like 343 may have oversteered in the other direction and just kind of thrown this novel off on its own to a point where it doesn't feel as consequential as it actually could. I mean, there are definitely some, ties there into the lore at large, but there's really no big revelations, big drops. It's pretty tame comparatively. It just feels kind of, I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't feel as it's not like a must read or anything. It's kind of there. It's like, if you're dying to read something Halo, it's there.
That's why I was not super willing to give it like a 9 or a 10 out of 10. It's because while it was an interesting story, it definitely wasn't essential in any way, shape, or form. That and the word Lecateriolite must have come up.
Oh my
God! Right? Yeah.
Thank you.
The word.
Yeah. Let's tell her.
On chapter 3. There's much more to come.
I told
Listen, 4.5 chapters in, and I understand what you're saying.
Berthazar in the chat says 7 out of 10 for him.
7 out of 10. Ooh, critical.
I don't
I
know.
agree what you mean though about it not feeling like it's very isolated. Like normally Halo books have both a main mission and then you go to multiple locations, or there's like multiple. There's more traveling.
Timelines.
Yeah, it feels good. Yeah, this felt very like a mission, like one isolated mission. It was good quality, but
and it feels like the majority of the novel, they're not even actually executing their own mission. They're kind of sidetracked for a large portion of the book. So,
but do you think maybe not to say that the shoulder of the blame of expectations is laid squarely on your shoulders, but do you think maybe that's more so because we didn't necessarily get what we typically expect out of a Halo book? It may not necessarily be a bad thing. It's just not necessarily what everyone expects.
I don't read most of the Halo novels. I have not read a Halo novel since I read like Ghost of Onyx years ago. So I didn't really come into it with like expectations of it being, anything huge or groundbreaking. But I kind of was still a little, I don't know.
Were you
like
expecting it to follow that sort of time skip, flash to this team in the a few years or months in the future, the next chapter is flashing back to a different character at a different time.
Yeah.
Were you expecting that, or were you just like, whatever the book is, I'm cool?
I'll say if I. Oh, go ahead, Shirley.
I just want to say, like, I've read Ghost of Onyx. I don't remember it very well. The two I've read that I enjoyed the most were The Fall of Reach and is it First Strike is the one that takes place between CE and 2, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Those two have stories that are very important in the universe. They tell a story that actually links with the games, but they don't tell it in a way that makes it feel like it's required reading. It's a interesting story for people who want to seek it out, but it's not crucial. But it's also not completely unimportant. And they strike that good middle ground of that. And I feel like Shadows of Reach falls a little bit too far to the not quite as important as it maybe should be side of things.
Okay, so
And I mean, if I can,
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I was gonna say just to kind of compare because you mentioned First Strike. The only other Halo book I've read besides now that I'm reading Shadows of Reach is First Strike, and I just reread it over the summer. It would definitely, I can see what you're saying, and it's definitely a little jarring to go from the different writing styles of Eric Nyland to Troy Dennis now, or Denning. I said Dennis. Oh God, Troy Dennis. But I think that when it comes to what you said about how inconsequential it is, in all fairness, you probably I would assume you read First Strike after playing Halo 2. It could be that we play the story for Halo Infinite and suddenly we see more in this book than what we see now.
See, that's actually exactly what I was going to say too. Was one of the things that the book does a lot. Are we? Is this spoilers or what are we doing
This
for that?
is.
I'll go for it. No,
we
no.
are doing
Yeah,
spoilers.
you-
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
So
announced.
Yeah,
one
we
of the
are.
things the book does very consistently and very well, which is one of the reasons why I give it such high points, is it characterizes the shit out of Blue Team, and
Oh.
I can't believe
Yeah,
I
it does.
can't believe honestly that a story with such a simple premise here, where they're just going to reach to retrieve a package, which by the way we never find out what it is.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's a big negative for me right there.
Yeah,
That's
what I think
a
we found
huge
out.
part of my
So,
problems with
but
it.
the thing is, though, I think this is meant to be more of a character study than anything. There's a lot of talk too about Chief, Chief, really aching and all of his the burden of responsibility that he wears on his shoulders and such. That I feel like it's setting the table for something
In
pretty.
Infinite, maybe, right?
I have a feeling.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that Halo Infinite may not kill Master Chief, but I think it might debilitate him. Like,
Oh, that's almost
Well,
more painful.
I didn't think about
Oh,
that.
man.
Word.
Yeah.
Oh god, a crippled Master Chief. Oh my god.
Okay, so
Wow.
I'm glad you actually brought this up because this was something I wanted to talk about. Is that it's very character focused as opposed to actually being story or plot focused. It's
Yeah.
a lot of it's on characters and even like side characters. Like oh god, what's the lieutenant's name? They get a lot of fleshing out. Yeah, Chapov. Yeah. They get a lot of fleshing out, but my biggest problem with it while I was reading it was that I still haven't come to terms with the way 343 likes to characterize Chief as like an emasculated old veteran who's really sad, and it just really throws me off reading it and seeing Chief like chuckle at jokes that aren't funny and then talk about how sad he is because he's missing Cortana. It's like, I don't know who this guy is. Like, what, he wants to be a diplomat when he retires? Who is he?
I get that.
Chief of all people.
I definitely can see where you're coming from with that, but the thing is, like, you can't really. I don't think you can carry a series for 20 years straight with releases happening every 3 to 5 years and have a character just be this blank slate that the Chief was. I do think.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. You finished that.
No, I was just gonna say I did like Chief as the stoic kind of, no nonsense, not really super talkative type of guy. But honestly, even if you're right, but even if you look at Chief in Halo 3, there's still like levels of emotion to the character that they were kind of peeling back the layers for already. And I actually feel like, whereas people think that Halo 4 kind of just jumped the shark or decided on a direction, I think Halo 3 was already kind of moving in that direction of characterizing that.
I agree. It definitely. Oh, go ahead, Rex.
It was, but it was very. You see over the first the first 2 games, you can see perhaps some moments, maybe some body language where he's not emoting outwardly too strongly. 3 was really where you could hear concern, and his actions exemplified to you. They showed you his level of concern, right? The way he's concerned about Cortana, he finds her.
It's mostly when he has this body language, or he has these emotions that show a little bit more. It's almost revolved around Cortana, which I definitely think the whole point of that was in 3 was like, yes, you have this robotic super soldier badass, but he has this one chink in his armor that's this AI.
Or the complaints then is that I don't think anybody has, maybe nobody has an issue with him, showing that he has some emotions to him. The issue I think that some people might have is that it was a blatant flip of the coin. It was like you just threw the blinds open. Like you got to build up to that slowly. You can't just rip the Band-Aid off a character that you've been with for something like 10 years at this point, and then 6 years, and then all of a sudden he's just pining over this AI and just like crippling himself.
I can agree with that.
Could I be devil's advocate with a few of the
Always.
things that Shirley brought up, or I forget his Project Autumn, was for instance, the whole talking about being hurt or wounded and like thinking about he mentions, I think at one point, he's not slowing down yet, but he's considering that he doesn't want to hold his team back if he starts. To me, that's a true soldier. That's a real man. Like he was looking at it like as a soldier, he was looking at how much physical damage he could take before he slows down. And the whole like diplomat thing, like I think it was kind of tongue in cheek, but he was talking about how politics is kind of like war and how he was easily manipulating the people around that table. And he's like, "Oh, I could do this. This is easy."
Oh, yeah, that's how I read it. Yeah,
like I didn't read it like, and I get the whole like emotion thing. Yeah, I kind of view a couple things just a little differently. Like the whole talk about retiring, like a line that I really liked that I think ties in well with his characterization. There's two really, but I'll be quick. I'm sorry. One is that he reflected that if he retires, if he manages to not die, which he's okay with, but I think that's kind of character growth because in the comics before 5, he was kind of suicidal and wanting to die, and you can't keep him in that place if you want him to grow. So now that he doesn't want to die, he's like looking ahead. He's like, "Oh, will I retire?" He decides he doesn't want to mentor young Spartan 4s because they're different than him. He wants to mentor the next Miranda Keys and Johnsons of the world, kind of like young and up and coming Marines that he finds as like really tough soldiers. And I think that's kind of cool for his character.
It's so cool to see him actually thinking about the future. Can we talk about, by the way, can we talk about real quick the fact that, okay, so first off, can we agree that a single Halo game is roughly equivalent to a book, like in terms of length?
More or less, unless it's something like First Strike that takes place over the course of like months.
So, can we talk about the fact that this book, in 478 pages, I think it was, managed to characterize Blue Team better than any of the books did or any of the media did over the course of about, 15 years? 12 years or so? Because Blue Team is awesome in this. I love, like, Fred cracking all the
Fred kind of gets the short end of the stick with being out with a concussion like the whole time. He just kind of is jamming on.
Bertazar in the chat on this note said, "I did the audiobook and Fred sounded like Joe Swanson from Family Guy and I couldn't take it seriously."
Oh man, all of those audiobook voices were so...
I heard some interesting things about the audiobook.
Yeah, the audiobook is interesting.
Yeah, Sam.
How you doing,
Chief, can I bounce?
Gato Guy, the elite, just kind of sounds like an elderly dude, which is really weird to me because a bunch of the brutes sound like elites. So it's like, it feels really off. He just sounds like an old man.
I kind of pictured him as like this slimy, older kind of character.
Greasy, slimy.
I liked him. Like Gato Guy, and again the lieutenant's name, who I still can't remember. They were my two favorite characters out of the book. So
we need people like that. We really need people like that because while they're not necessarily essential, they just they make the world feel lived in and real because they're people with actual motives and little conniving things and plans that they want to kind of.
I have something, a theory here, and it's less of a theory, but more just a thought that, I think it was really once 343 took over and started expanding the universe that the books started not only just exploring different sections of the universe that they were creating, but also the character development took on a more personal tone. Whereas in the previous books, we're saying that, over these past few books and games, we're seeing more character development from these characters that we weren't seeing before. And it just sort of goes hand in hand that, like the Covenant War came to a close, but, now obviously there's new threats. But once the Covenant War came to a close, that's when, around that time, that's when 343 took over. Now that that's closed, now it's like the characters have this more room to breathe almost. Because the main,
it's kind of a problem in and of itself.
I wanted to kind of bring something up that I just thought of when you're saying that. I'm thinking in like it could be that a mixture of their age and their exposure to other humans in the last 10 years or so in canon has kind of allowed them to develop more diverse personalities and be less of the robotic, silent soldiers. Because when you think about it, a lot of their time as Spartan 2s was spent on covert missions. Geffen, I'm going to mute you just because there's a lot of background. On covert missions where the only people they really had to communicate with was each other. And then the war broke out, and obviously it was going on for years prior to that, but they were put in positions where it was more them on the field, especially Chief and exposed to these like
Yeah.
eccentric personalities like Johnson, that may have led to like a greater debate, not debate, greater development for him.
I think that
Yeah.
articulates one of the bigger issues of the post Bungie era, which is how do you tell a story after a trilogy of games with the Covenant? And it's like because the biggest common thread with 343's Halo games is what's the enemy this time? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
who's the bad guy this time, and how are they going to rope the Covenant into it, or what
Yeah.
Yeah.
remains of the Covenant?
Yeah.
So the fact that we have the Banished as this big brutal faction, I think it's such a good sign. I think it's a really, really good sign that narratively we're headed in a good direction.
They really
Yeah.
could have used that prior to Halo 4.
Yeah.
I think the Banished is amazing.
The problem is they couldn't. Kind of like what
They like mix.
Curly was talking about. 343 is extremely reactive to a fault where they always overcorrect. They always
Yeah.
overcorrect.
Very.
People didn't like the
Yeah.
Forerunner that much. They overcorrected and made it about Cortana instead. People didn't like Cortana. Now they're overcorrecting and making just completely canning the Forerunner as a whole, as a faction. Essentially, it feels like it's kind of
Yeah.
crazy actually how predictable that 343 can be sometimes with these things.
Yeah.
I feel like
It's
Halo
really
4. I feel like Halo 4 is like 343 was like, well, we got the Forerunners and we got the Covenant. Throw them together. Let's see what happens. And that's like the whole point. I was just
Yeah.
and it was just.
I think the Forerunner, the Covenant were in Halo 4. I think if 343 had their way, that Halo 5 would not have had the Covenant. But
No, not
because
at
of
all.
the way
Oh, yeah.
Halo 4 was received,
Yeah.
no, I'm serious. But because of the way that Halo 4 was received, I think they decided to keep the Covenant. And the reason why the Covenant were even in Halo 4, and I think this is abundantly clear, because they made them a weak faction out the gate in Halo 4. They only existed for comfort and familiarity for the player. That is the only
Exactly.
reason why they were there.
Probably, yeah.
I swear
Yeah.
to it on my life.
Another
To do
And
like
I
a
mean, they just
smooth
went and
transition.
killed like Julam Dama and his whole faction in the
Which
first
was-
level of the game.
there was
Yeah, because they needed subservience to Cortana. They needed to get rid of that and make sure that all these factions were lined up behind Cortana.
there was
Mhm.
one of the
Yeah.
things
So there
that's
were.
my bad. Go ahead, Jamal.
No, you go, bro.
I was going to say one of the things that like I said before, the issue that I think some people may have had with the direction that they took characterizing these characters and the speed at which they did so was a bit jarring to people after being built up. But I think that's another reason again why people don't. It's again like you said, Jared, that 343 overcorrects very hard. So they, we had these Forerunners being discussed all throughout the first 3 games, and then they decided to capitalize on that, do something with it, but they changed so much, so fast, that people
Sorry
were
about
just
that.
like, "This is terrible. This isn't classic Halo." It was the characterization
Yeah.
was different. Which, by the way, the opening scene in Halo 4 is one of my favorite parts of it, where the Oni agents interrogating Halsey. It was so good. But they changed the characterization. And one of my personal critiques is nothing against Kazuma Jinoichi. I think I said his name wrong, but
Kazuma Jinoichi.
yeah, he it just wasn't. It was like this, sci-fi, too sci-fi for
The
me.
soundtrack?
Yeah, it was weird because
jarring.
all the best tracks from Halo 4 were Kaz, and
Yeah.
then the entirety of the soundtrack in Halo 5 was just Kaz. I think either they were spread too thin, or they just gave him poor
I
direction.
wouldn't have mind if they shifted that way with the music, but you have to keep. Again, people there's a tune and a theme to Halo. There's a light music that people know.
What
They
is
hear the
with
tune.
that,
You're going to
anyway?
be 90 years
What
old. You're going to hear it, and you're going to go, "That's Halo." Like
Yeah.
to remove
Yeah.
that completely is like
I cannot rationalize the complete abandoning of like classic Halo music. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, like all of the
Why?
motifs that have been shared between the original trilogy are just all gone in the.
Why?
We have to
like,
say
yeah,
the
which
Infinite.
is so good about
It could
Infinite.
possibly have been them trying to distance themselves from Marty's work, since at the time he was
Bro,
with
okay,
him
but
on
that's-
Destiny.
343.
Let me stop because it's about
Whoa,
to get
whoa, whoa,
loud.
guys,
in here.
guys,
Please
guys,
do
I'm
not
sorry.
do that. Yeah, it's gonna get loud in
No,
here.
we're all in agreement. We're just so
let me
passionate about
say
it.
one
Like-
thing, okay? I have to air this dirty laundry every time I hear it because, oh my god, it frustrates me. Why on earth, as a new publisher, and maybe this is a sign that some recent things I think we're probably knowing what I'm talking about that occurred within 343, maybe for the better. But I can't hear you, Tom. It's probably audio priority or something. Anyway, I can't rationalize. Okay, so I'm a studio. I'm the head of 343, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm going, okay, so we're in charge of Halo now. So we're gonna be the guys who make Halo 4. Cool. What do we do? And then somebody suggests, or they come up with, and they just go,
Oh man.
we change every
Everything.
single
Yeah.
every piece of art, every single soundtrack. There's nothing, literally not a single thing, except for the 2 voice actors from the original trilogy that were used, and the multiplayer announcer, I guess.
Yep.
Stay. That's it. That's it. Nothing else. Not a single other thing. What is that? What is that?
I want to pick up here because we were talking about the characterization of Chief and how it's changed under 343. And that change, I think, is the most apparent if you look at where Chief was at the end of Halo 3 versus where he is in Halo 4. And at the end of Halo 3, he's revered through the UNSC as a hero, as a legend. He's saved humanity, and he's finally getting his rest. And in Halo 4, he's losing Cortana. He no longer has the respect of people in the UNSC to a point because he's no longer the only Spartan. He doesn't have the support the UNSC behind him. He has to save humanity by himself, and he loses Cortana, and he's big and he's sad. Right off the bat, they take him from all-time high to just like depression.
And out of all of that, the worst thing is he doesn't have Johnson's one-liners to keep him going.
I gotta tell you,
don't bring up Johnson. Why would you do that?
If I'm the UNSC or if I'm Oni, right, and Master Chief is off on some rogue mission, literally the last thing I'm gonna do, absolute last thing I'm gonna do, is get in the way of the guy who literally saved the entire fucking universe twice. Like, what are you doing?
So Halo.
What do you mean,
in the chat?
Hey, Locke, come here. We got a job for you.
Don't even get me started on Locke. Y'all know how I feel.
Yeah, let's get back on topic on the book though.
In the chat, Halo Cree, I believe that's Tepic or one of the senior staff running their Twitch.
I think that's Tepic on his other account.
It might be Tepic. But he says, in response to what we're saying about why it's Tepic. So, in response to what we're saying about how, they're like, what do we do first? Change everything. He said his thoughts are, it's because you're confident your fan base is acquired already, so you try to reach another audience, one that you didn't reach with the other games. So you make the marketing studies and try to see all the trends, and you define your games not based on a vision, but based on marketing tendencies. And voila, here's Halo.
Hold on, I want to add this real quick. They brought in consultants when they were working on Halo 4. They specifically chose people who didn't like Halo and preferred other multiplayer shooters and asked them what they wanted to see out of Halo. They didn't consult with existing fans. They consulted with people who hated what Halo was.
That's like a bad move right there. That's just like
it's an understatement, dude. It's an understatement.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. I feel like that's not a smart business move to just alienate the only people who are definitely.
I think those decisions weren't made by the team though. And that's, you know what, this is an issue that I generally think 333 has versus Bungie. Decisions like that weren't made by the team. They were made by the executives who handled the business end of
I don't know, man. Part of me doesn't know because when I think about it and I think about what we saw at E3 this year, I can't rationalize Microsoft signing off on that. I just can't rationalize that.
But do you think Microsoft?
I mean, I think at the time they were just confident.
Go ahead, Tommy.
I'm just going to say, at the time, you got to think, it wasn't Phil Spencer in charge when Halo 4 came out. It was the guy before him, I forget his name, who said stick to 360. He did not have good business sense to begin with. But I think on top of that, at the time, Halo was their golden child. Halo literally was a legend. It hadn't soiled anything really until 4 came out. See, they probably were just like, it says Halo on the box, it'll sell. Do whatever.
So I think I think it's definitely that. Excuse me. It's definitely that. But again, it wasn't. It was, it was all logic and calculations and marketing studies, and I don't think you're right. It really wasn't by the fans who you consulted. It was like the head of 343, Bonnie Ross, was
Right.
what can we do to just make money? If you ask Bonnie Ross anything about Halo, like answer 3 questions to show your knowledge of Halo, she'd be like,
all right, so I'm gonna stop you right there. I actually do develop time.
Wait, what?
Wolf, you're cutting out, bro.
I can like.
Wolf, you're cutting out, dude.
I've got you on 200% volume. I can barely.
All right, hold on.
Yeah.
I'm gonna turn this off.
I do want to hear what he has to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I was gonna.
Oh, go
Jesus
ahead.
Christ. I was gonna say is, I do talk to the 343 developer from time to time, and
come on, Gif.
whenever we were talking to him, we were kind of pitching him questions about Bonnie Ross, and one of the questions that came up was, is she a reptile? And she's not an evil reptile lady. She's actually really nice. She does know and like about Halo.
David Ick
but
loved that.
Yeah, I know. It was kind of funny.
See,
here's the thing. From my understanding about why Halo 4 and Halo 5 ended up the way they did, not going to completely take the blame off of 343, but it was definitely Microsoft that had most of their hand in that pudding. Because whenever Halo 4 launched, you had all these people that were carrying over from Bungie. And then the Blame engine as itself is very hard to work with. So you've got people that don't know really what they're doing, but also some people that do know what they're doing. And after they made Halo 4 and it had to be on the 360, it could not wait until the next console generation. They ended up getting pushed into like a Halo 2 crunch where they only had like a year or some shit to build this entire game. And then
I agree.
Go ahead.
I'll say that I think it definitely a lot of these decisions came from Microsoft and what they wanted to market the game towards. This is an awesome convo. I'd like to go back to this, but I do want to focus on the book a little bit more since we're still sort of in the beginning. So I'd like to steer back into the book. We pretty much talked about the characterization. How do you guys feel about like its hints and maybe nods to what's to come in Halo Infinite? I know there isn't a whole lot, but I've only read the first 4 chapters, so I'd love to hear like what's there and what you guys think.
I thought it was interesting that the book starts off with like they're not sure if it's like the Keepers of Freedom, if it's like the Banished, and then you switch to like the Keepers of Freedom point of view, and they're both like the same faction. So
Surprised it was both.
Yeah,
the whole entire time the Spartans are trying to figure it out, and it's the same faction. And I think that'll lead to a bigger presence in Infinite because it's not just gonna have normal Banished.
Yeah.
It'll probably have like these various different faction clan groups within the Banished that are like fighting each other while you're like fighting them. So that's probably gonna be like, really interesting.
I feel like it opens the door for like a Great Schism type of situation where we've got a lot of infighting and a lot of huge problems.
Let's sit out this fight.
And I think one of the other things that were you trying to say something?
No.
Oh, one of the other things that I definitely took away from the book was that I think them having the Arc portal be open. I didn't really touch on it too much, but surely it's a two-way street, right? Because I feel like we are one single plot MacGuffin away, just a single plot MacGuffin away from the Flood just marching through a portal on the Arc and straight on the Reach, which is a big problem. That's
definitely.
not like of all the places for the Flood to go, that's not the place you want them to be. Even if the stuff here is like destroyed, there's still information that's salvageable on Reach. So that would be big bad.
Yeah.
So
there's like all that Forerunner stuff buried.
Beartisar says he's been spoiled by the Forerunner saga. Sins of Reach felt a bit too small scale rather than the grandiose galaxy-ending scale of the Forerunner books. That is one thing.
It's just you can't keep something. You can't. I don't know that they're really comparable. It's like comparing
Halo ODST to Halo 2.
Yeah, exactly. It's a much smaller story. It's meant to be a smaller story. This basically was Master Chief ODST's story.
Yeah, really. I mean, there's a couple things. Tom, you asked about things that tie into Infinite. Obviously, like Castor and the Keepers kind of breaking with Aatrox at the end. Because, I mean, Guy was told to kill him and he didn't. He joined the Keepers. And they both kind of agreed that they were probably going to die at the hands of the Banished on the Ark. So that probably has an impact because you might have the Keepers fighting the Banished on Zeta Halo. I don't know. But you might have this kind of... Go ahead.
Oh, no. I just had an idea, but this is out there, so I want you to finish your thought.
Okay. The only other kind of big thing, and I'm sure we'll probably get to it, but I wanted to make sure we didn't run out of our 1 hour time before mentioning it, is obviously the biggest takeaway was that mission, the cryobins that they got for Halsey. And I know everyone was saying we don't know what's in it, but we kind of do in a way. I mean, I was...
It's Noble 6. It's Noble 6. We all know.
Yeah, he's folded up in a tin box, and that's where he is.
Yeah.
No, I was flicking through Halsey's journal, and it's pretty evident that obviously you have some of her cryoscanned, basically, matrix, a living matrix in there. And I don't know if they're going to basically create a new Cortana or create that chip that we saw in the original trailer that's basically almost like a weapon against Cortana. Because looking at the bottom of her entry in March of 2543, she basically says, consequently, excised portions of an AI can learn and evolve autonomously. This new knowledge can then be reabsorbed into the parent matrix. So she's talking about, granted, this was a technology that hadn't really come out, but the idea is that she could split an AI and then reabsorb it later. That's not exactly the same, but she could rework that with the new matrix, and I think that's the chip. I think that's the biggest takeaway of the book, is my point, is that cryobin.
Yeah. I learned that from Red vs. Blue.
That's why you're a lore master, dude. You just cited Halsey's journal.
You don't just bring up, okay, so like obviously we have, what do they call her? They have a nickname for her. What the hell was it?
Halsey?
Yeah, no, Cortana throughout the story.
What do they call it?
The apparition.
The apparition. So the thing is, they indirectly focused on modern Cortana in that sense, but there was a lot of subtext about who Cortana used to be that was littered throughout it the whole entire time, and you don't lay those breadcrumbs for no reason. The fact is, like, if Cortana was going to just die and the story was over and that was what was going to happen, we wouldn't be talking about Cortana like this leading up to Halo Infinite. We just wouldn't.
One of the most interesting additions for me was mention of Cortana's quote-unquote sister, basically.
Oh, yeah.
Kamaya or whatever. It kind of... like you were saying, it kind of sets like either a new Cortana or something related to Cortana, because like she was very clearly involved in like Cortana's early development, so that kind of stuff seems like the best way to get to Cortana.
Did anyone else picture that in their head super vividly, like the way that they were describing her, like with her cold, like her dead blank eyes and everything? Oh, it was spooky.
Yeah,
the apparition indeed.
I was nerding out though.
I want to bring up something because you guys were talking. This isn't directly related to this, but we were talking about the Banished and Castor and stuff. Mm-hmm. I firmly believe, from what we've seen of Infinite and the way it tracks like dates, that we're gonna have an ODST-esque storytelling where the majority of it is gonna be Chief after getting found and trying to solve these problems. But I feel like we're definitely gonna go back, because it's still the game. What we've seen so far, it takes place 3 months after the UNSC lost. I feel like we're going to go back a little bit and see what happens as the story unfolds. Could you imagine if we end up playing, and this is out there, but could you imagine if Castor actually ends up being a main protagonist in Infinite that we play
like
as on
RB
the Ark?
style?
Like Arbiter?
Yeah.
That'd be interesting.
To what you're saying about like it being an ODST style narrative, I agree, but I disagree, because I don't think it's going to be flashbacks. To me, it reads as the perfect vehicle for lore, for world building. If this is supposed to be this open world adventure, then this is like Skyrim books. Like you find a data pad that tells the story of this soldier who tried to live out a few days in a cave and got discovered by the Banished and all that stuff how it happened. You know what I mean? Like just all those kinds of little stories. Yeah. I think that's why we're getting this time skip of the UNSC losing the war months ago, to quote you.
That would be cool too, to have it be read more than tell. You never know. No, it was just a thought I had. Imagine if that was it, and like this character that he's significant for the book, we might not feel will be significant for the actual like game. Plot twist: he's actually one of the main characters. Haha.
See, I'd like that.
Metal Gear Solid 2.
I would like that. And from a gameplay standpoint, I think it's interesting, but I feel like it's from like a developer mindset. I feel like it's complicated to have to figure out a way to make that make sense. And also, with the fact that we pretty much know this game is one continuous shot by now, it also throws a wrench in that. I mean, there's ways to do it, like you just pass by a walk or something like that. But it means it's a lot of semantics involved in it that I think, given what we've seen so far, it's kind of going to be pretty cut and dry. Almost like I feel like maybe a good comparison to what I anticipate Halo Infinite being based on that is kind of like Death Stranding, honestly.
Really?
Yeah, honestly.
How so? That interests me. Just
well, okay, so a little more, obviously a little more gun guy go shoot alien.
Yeah.
In a sense. But I think that the one thing Death Stranding does really, really well is world building, and there's so many little things for you to discover. But it's also relatively linear. You know, it's not open world. The game would they'd have you believe it's open. It's not. You are going on a linear path to a certain area, but it's so open-ended that it doesn't bother you, and it never once feels like something is happening to disrupt the flow of things, you know?
It is literally like the map is a massive, massive corridor, and pretty much that's
literally.
It. So,
so I don't know that it's necessarily going to be a massive corridor. You know, there's a lot of different ways you can do it, but I think the overall impression is that we're not really going to get any loading. We're going to get a continuous world where we're experiencing it in one big, rich, kind of similar to God of War, you know, The Last of Us, and all that stuff. I think that's what they're going for in Infinite. Is they kind of want to lean a little bit into that kind of PlayStation single player experience a little bit, but make it their own at the same time.
Kind of like ODST, and how it's a little more open. And it's a little less linear, and like maybe you could choose different objectives to do out of order, but it's still, you're still headed in one direction for the most part, you know.
Baby, you light up my world. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. One thing I heard a lot during
Do you think as
Huh?
Do you think as well?
Oh boy.
Yeah, good
balls
talk,
in his car.
Do you think as
You're
well?
hella cutting out.
Would it be open world, like let's say, where you could travel from different? All right. So,
He's asking about if there will be fast traveling and stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what I want. When I have to listen to Halo fans a lot. I'm in a high position on a fan game, so I have to understand what people want from Halo, and you have to understand Halo fans have no idea what they want most of the time. So it's an interesting thing to try and figure out. But one thing I heard from a lot of people when we got that gameplay reveal of Infinite is they're like, "Oh, it's Far Cry but Halo," and I was like, "What? What gave you that idea out of anything you saw?" It's not even close. So it's
articulated that.
There's absolutely no way that it's like this huge open-ended thing. I'm feeling it's more. I think ironically, the greatest description of what I can assume of what it will play like is the mission Halo from Combat Evolved, where there's all the Marines you have to save, and it's in a big area. You can do it in whatever order you want, but you're still getting the same point. There's no like side missions or any of that. I assume it's just going to be big and open-ended as opposed to actually being open world, which I think is something that no one actually wants in a Halo game.
We've actually seen side missions already. If you haven't, if you need to go back and watch the demo, there's like high-value target kills that you can do, and so you can
I mean
travel
like
throughout
proper
the
side
world.
mission.
Far Cry clone now.
Yeah, no. I mean like
However,
here's an
it's
open world
not
and you're
like
free
a-
roaming and go trigger this mission.
Yeah, because
it's not gonna be like a
Red Dead
GTA
2,
thing.
whether
Or-
you like it or dislike it, Red Dead 2 did a lot of high value target type things, or wild animal hunting and all that sort of stuff. And yet, to me, I feel like, again, this is kind of, people go back and forth on this, but I felt that Red Dead Redemption 2's open world aspect was phenomenal. And
Damn.
the amount
I
of
love
things
that
that you
game.
could do. And the thing is, everything that Infinite showed us could easily just check the same boxes as Red Dead 2. It could be an open world game. There is that statement that Chris Lee said, even though he's out now. There is a statement that he said about, you see that? You can go there. He said the Todd Howard quote, you know? So
Mhm.
I'm wondering if
That
maybe
I don't want to believe it though.
right. Well, I mean, but that's understandable. But there's only so much to we have what we have.
I think a full open world would be a serious misstep, personally.
See,
Yeah, I think what it'll be is it'll be like
I
ODST,
got
right?
something to chime in real quick. Halo Create or Tepic on the chat says, honest question. At this point, do you trust 343 to do the job as good as Rockstar on these aspects? If they were to, I'm assuming
that's a
lot of
tall
people can do
order
a lot with $500
because
million.
I personally think that Red Dead 2 is the best open world. It's specific. I mean, you can have your criticism about the game itself, but I think it has the best and most lively feeling open world of any game.
Same.
I think
Multiplayer.
it's honestly a next gen game that came out last
Oh
year.
yeah. Yeah, the campaign, however derivative that you might want to say that it is, and Rockstar's mission design, you can watch the Nakey Jakey video. Their design hasn't changed in like 15 years. But that aside, when they take away the linearity to it and they say, no, it's your world, you go do what you want to do, the multiplayer is really the experience that game was built around, in my opinion. And the fact that I can just go anywhere and just do whatever I want is really liberating. And the fact is, that game managed to do something where not a single facet of the campaign was compromised for the multiplayer. They didn't scale it back in any way, shape, or form. There's no missing wildlife or anything. It is quite literally the same world with a couple of buildings not blown up. It takes place before the campaign.
Do you think?
Red Dead
Do you
Redemption
think?
2.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Hold on. Wolf wanted to say something. Go ahead, bro.
In Red Dead Redemption 2, you're referring to them not skimping out on anything.
What do you mean?
I definitely don't. I don't.
They
go
definitely
ahead,
cut some stuff out of the multiplayer.
That's true.
In order to work.
I definitely don't want to get
Talking
sidetracked
about like
on
some
Red
of
Dead 2,
the
though.
card games and stuff.
Hold on, we'll tie.
They did take out a number of things. Like it's mostly just little stuff, like snow deformation and weather and stuff like that. But they definitely had to make sacrifices for it.
Well, I mean, if you compare it to what they did with GTA 4,
Yeah,
5, rather,
by no means am I
miles better.
discrediting them.
Do you
but,
guys think a Halo game done like that, like let's put this into, let's visualize this in completion real quick. Imagine a game of that scope, but Halo, but ultimately it has some, there's an overarching storyline within the game, obviously, but all these different side things you could do.
How about
let's be honest, how would that be good? Would people like that?
How about,
and
how about
would
this?
that play
How
out,
about this? Okay, how about what if we got the best of both worlds? What if the campaign was that more or less linear experience? Okay, so there's one thing that I'm convinced of. If you're building a multiplayer world, right? Or if you're building a multiplayer game and it has an open world campaign, you are wasting so much by not using that open world in the multiplayer. So I've been of the mind for quite a while that everything you see in the campaign is a play space in the multiplayer all the same. Not necessarily that they're like I think like Destiny, there will be multiplayer maps that you can play on. But I think that there's going to be multiplayer questing with your Spartan. I'm confident. I'm confident of it.
Really?
Yes.
Well, okay. So I actually want to touch on this
Halo
because
Online. This is Saber. This is Saber all over again.
See, that's bad.
We've been
Not a
kind
good
of
thing.
skirting
You don't
around
want
the
to
general.
that land up
Well,
like
it's
that.
the thing is, it's a completely different engine. It may be bad in the sense that the initial Blam engine is, but Slip Space Engine is not the same engine. They didn't spend as much money on it as they did in 3 extra years of development, or rather 2 extra years of development for nothing.
Personally,
Okay, so the reason why I'm saying that it would be a bad idea to use kind of the Destiny model for single player is then you run into people in, like, for example, with Destiny, that can play the entire game and not even do the campaign.
Well, so the thing is, you're operating under the assumption that I'm saying that this is
I know,
explicitly carbon copy what Destiny did. I'm
No,
not.
I understand. What I'm referring to is if you have, I don't know, the multiplayer kind of aspect coming into the campaign, where you can have 4 or 5 people in this big open world.
More than that, I would think.
Well, yeah, I'd hope, but that's kind of where it comes into, because then it comes into an MMO.
Well, I mean,
here's a question.
That's the end game.
Here's
The
a
thing is,
good
when you talk
question.
about a 10-year plan, you can't just do a 10-year plan on a game that's got a
That's what's important.
single player campaign
10-year
and
plan is a
multiplayer.
mistake.
It's just not possible.
I agree with Shirley. I agree. I don't think that it's the right move. Everybody's switching to games as a service. I don't think that's the right move for everybody.
Oh no,
Again,
I mean
they're taking
yeah,
what's
I don't like
trendy
it either.
and they're doing what they think is going to be good for the long term. I don't agree with it, but if it's going to happen, which it will, I'm curious as to what they're going to do with it. And Halo Cat has a good question in the chat that says, if the Flood were to actually be an Infinite, how do you expect them to impact the narrative and the setting? Which is interesting over a 10-year period if it stays like that. That's crazy.
I have this actual complete weird vision of what Infinite's going to be that I built up in my head, and I draw parallels in my. I know it's ridiculous, but I draw parallels consistently in my head to Destiny and World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft more than anything, because I think the way World of Warcraft does post game or content is just way better than Destiny. Destiny, I hate Destiny. I'm sorry, I hate Destiny. I said it
because I'm actively playing it.
Anyway, I could see them doing big. So here's
expansion.
Here's the way that here's the way I see this playing out. Okay, I see there being a campaign that you play through, and when you finish the campaign, you unlock the multiplayer, and specifically not the whole multiplayer, but the component of free roaming the world and having quests and such. And I see monthly events happening. I see things kind of like raids or in the realm of raids happening, and I see full-blown world events happening over time. I could even see zones where there's 2 years down the road, 2022, 2023, whenever, when there's the next big Halo Infinite moment, they're like, oh, Halo Infinite, the Rise of the Flood. That's a terrible name. But
I actually want to.
Where's my Yap the Destroyer expansion?
I have to actually go, guys. So I'll catch you guys later. I'm sorry to dip so early.
Oh, that's cool, dude. You gotta do what you gotta do. It was awesome having you, though.
Thank you for stopping by, bro.
Yeah, not a problem. I had a lot of fun. I'd like to do this again sometime.
Definitely, man.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Later, fellas.
But
Adios, Jared. Thank you.
Yep.
See ya.
Later.
But to add to something he said just really quick about expansion, I definitely don't see the Flood coming back in this campaign. I think that they may hint at it and they'll save it for a story expansion, because they have confirmed story expansions, and even on top of it, they've said it's gonna be story expansions about the Chief.
I got two things when you're done.
It would be awesome to see all right, well, this is done. Is the Flood coming back? And then in a couple months or a couple years, they come out with this big story experience. It's like, oh shit, the Flood's back.
Yeah.
And then we have Banished v Banished, Harbinger, if that's another Covenant faction, whatever it is, coming in, Cortana coming in, and the Flood. And what we saw in Halo 2 and 3 of different factions fighting each other while you're trying to fight them, it's like that, but on a giant scale. I would love to see that. And then Cortana's words, you may want to sit this one out, might actually ring true.
Yeah.
So there's two things. One, I'm just gonna call it out. Tepic said that he said, quote, I'm calling it that campaign stuff reused in multiplayer is tied to some kind of battle royale stuff made to make your character customization much more important than usual in multiplayer, where you're typically just red and blue most of the time, which would be awesome. I agree with that. Personally agree with that 100%.
Let's step on my toes.
Cool. Yes.
I got a job to do, guys. 343 can't just steal that. Come on.
Seriously.
I mean,
and then also,
I
question for you, Tom, because you said you don't see them coming back, but I mean, they've been such an integral part of the story from day one, that I personally, I can't see them not only from day one in our timeline in 25, 52 onwards, right? But in the history of humanity, 200,000 BC, I think it was, or something, that far back, when humanity was previously a spacefaring race, that humanity previously fought the Flood and retreated back into Forerunner space, which is why they got defensive and thought humanity was trying to invade, and then started the war with humanity. From before we even know of Halo lore, our when the games start, the Flood was already a part of humanity's existence and the general story of Halo. Why?
Can I also add something?
This time? Yeah, no, go ahead, bro.
Obviously, like I actually think the Flood's just going to be from day one, just purely mainly because like Halo Wars 2, you have the Awakening Nightmare DLC.
That's
and
what I've been wanting to touch
literally
on
like
for
a
few minutes.
direct link to what's going to happen in Infinite. And if they just like don't have the Flood, then what's the point of Halo Wars 2 and the Awakening the Nightmare?
Hacker
Yeah,
711 says,
And like the ending cinematics and that sort of stuff. Like, what's the point?
Hacker 7111 says there's been a leak with a brute with Locke's helmet. I bet Rex is happy to hear that. Personally, yes, I am. If it's true, God, yes.
Oh, the
Anyway,
toy.
I'm happy to
Yeah,
hear
I've
that
seen it
too.
too. The figure
Which
with
is
Locke's
interesting.
helmet on his shoulder.
Very
They
I
did
hated
state
Locke
that
so much.
Okay,
But
so
I mean, in terms of the Flood, I think it's a coin toss whether or not they'll bring it back day one. I think they're gonna come back in Infinite at some point, whether it's day
Probably.
one or a DLC. I'm only saying that I could see them holding off because that's a good enough story that they could put that in there, get people hyped, and get people to buy the expansion.
And
play the
also 'cause it's a
expansion
T
because,
rating.
Oh shit, the Flood's back.
Yeah.
okay, so
Yeah.
if I can
It's
talk about
not been
this for
confirmed
a
to be a
second.
T rating for one, and
Yeah, go ahead.
the 343 developer that I'm going to keep his name out of because I don't want people harassing the shit out of him about stuff. But whenever we talked to him, he said unless it comes directly from 343, then don't believe that, because everyone kept saying that Infinite's got this T rating, blah blah blah, and then you
Wait,
go
so
look
it
at
might not. It might not have a T rating.
No, it doesn't have a
It
T
might
rating.
not have a T rating.
Dude,
It's
if
gonna
it
be
doesn't,
higher
I'm
than that,
so
right?
happy.
Also,
Wait.
he also made a point of saying about the toys as well is, well, they're pretty much dead on that just because that Locke's helmet appeared on one of those brutes does not mean that he's dead by any
Fair
means.
enough.
A question for you.
Yeah,
Rex.
So-
Adam,
Yeah, he could have lost his helmet or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, good point. Question though. Yeah, that'd be nice. Like, imagine he almost gets taken over by the
Yeah.
Flood, and all the Flood gets his helmet before he gets away. Crazy. Question for you then. Keep your source anonymous. We don't want to. We're not going to press you for that. But how not to discredit this guy, but how integral to the development of Halo, or a different question, worded differently, what position is he in that he has
He's
access
a
to this knowledge?
engineering manager.
He's a what?
Senior engineering manager.
Senior engineer. Okay, so he's
Oh.
probably
He's
pretty some stuff.
So he's like working
He's
in depth.
trust me, he's got a Spartan number and the whole 9 yards, and he showed us
That's
his
cool.
off.
I definitely don't
And-
want to pry into information that
Yeah.
you've been told that you can't share, because that's not really what we're trying to
Oh,
do.
I don't get told anything that I'm not allowed to tell anyone else. So
Oh, fair enough. Well, there you go. All right.
all right,
I don't
so
blow his name out so people
I
don't
can-
harass him or anything. So
again, take a second. I want to piece together a couple things we've touched on to now. Is I know at the very start we were saying we felt like something was missing from the book, and I know someone mentioned the absence of any mention of the Flood coming through the portal or being on the Ark at the end of the book is very odd. Is it? Do you guys think it's possible that the whatever was removed, possibly, or whatever might be missing, could be some mention of the Flood coming from maybe Atriox or anything like that, or a mention of Red Team?
Yeah.
no,
Yeah, for sure.
absolutely not. And the reason that I think that is because if they're going to use the Flood in their narrative in Infinite, they sure as hell are not going to show that card, no matter what, because they're taking inspiration from Halo Combat Evolved. And if you ever played Halo Combat Evolved the first time and it was your first Halo game and you had no knowledge about that game when it first came out and you went and played it,
Yep.
The Flood is a
Right,
big
but
choice.
we were saying the book was
Hey,
supposed to be dated closer to the game.
yes.
So
And
having
that's what I
that,
mean.
having that in the book would be less of a thing, and we're already sort of aware of it because of Halo Wars 2, and we have this setup of the portal. The Ark isn't sealed anymore. We've got the Banished forces coming back, so that does kind of open the door to reintroduce the Flood from the arc. So
Yeah.
if they're going to come from anywhere, that's where it makes sense.
And I do think, because definitely in the book, Cortana's presence is mentioned as almost mythical. It's like, well, if she gets involved, it's over.
Yeah, don't say her name.
I do think that the only crux that they could really throw at her is that the Flood gains traction and it's not stoppable unless the Halo rings are fired. That's I'm not saying that's where it's gonna go. I'm just saying, like, I think Cortana's Achilles heel is gonna end up being the Flood coming back.
You know,
Okay.
can I bring up something real quick? I was just kind of listening. Well, first of all, if any of the admins that might have muted Geffen, can you see if you've muted?
He is unmuted. He is server unmuted. He muted himself.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I told you he muted himself.
He muted himself.
Oh, but what I was going to say was, you know, when I was thinking about the discussion you guys were having about open world, I was thinking of ODST's gameplay and sort of the Tyree Plaza. I think that's it, when you're in kind of locations you're going to. That was a really rudimentary idea. I don't think it really was executed. It was an early kind of engine idea, and they didn't really utilize it to its best advantages. I think kind of ODST is really actually where you can see maybe where we're going to have Infinite. Because if you think about, let's say you're loading up Halo Infinite, right? You want to play a level with your friends. If it's truly open world, you kind of need that like checkpoints you can load to, those like sections. And I think it's going to resemble ODST kind of more. But about tiered enemies.
I agree.
Yeah, but about kind of tiered enemies, yeah, I think if the Flood come in, it's going to be later. And it's going to be, like you said, kind of all kind of twist. They've just been brought up way too much. And I think the whole point of Infinite is, sorry, I'm kind of getting all rambly, but Shadows of Reach, I kept laughing when I was reading the book because they kept trying to make Cortana not that effective of a villain. They were like, they didn't want to mention her name, but they're like, you know, her surveillance state, but now we've got all these factions, and you know what? And then Halsey spends a whole page going, you know, yeah, she's bad, but she saved the universe 3 times, so I don't feel that bad. And it was like they kept trying to hammer in the point, going like, you know, she's
unnecessary evil.
Right, to try and make, I think, players not feel so bad, like, when she's not the big bad of the next game. They're trying to backpedal, so they're going to bring in all these factions to kind of distract from that created timeline. I hope they don't drop it, but I think
they want us to they're trying to help us like her or dislike her more.
I think they're trying to help us basically forgive her, or like not care as much when she's not the big baddie. You know what I mean? Like they built her up.
I can see that. Yeah.
Do you think that
kind of like in the book, they did like all those like details from like John's perspective on her, like here and there.
But like, I would hesitate to say I'd wager my left hand on this one. I think the majority of Halo fans already don't. Again, this was another one of those things where it was so jarring of a change, where I don't think the majority of Halo fans dislike Cortana or view her as a villain, because it was such a fast. It was like here's the plateau, and then it was like we went from like to being like, God, I hope she's okay, to just what is happening. And, like, and I don't think they need to try to make us forgive her, because I don't think anybody hates her anyway.
Maybe not forgive her.
I still am one of the people who loves that they killed her off in 4, because I think that was a really ballsy move. And I really hate that they went back on that. It was like, oh, well, Halo, because basically Halo 5 starts and Cortana's already alive and Chief already knows about it. There's no build up. There's no, how did she get to here? It's like, oh God, she's back. She's all powerful. It's like, all right.
Yeah. I think what Halo does really well, sorry to cut you off. I think what Halo does really well is throughout each of the games, the books, you know, like we build the relationship between Cortana and the Chief, and then like leading up to Halo 5, where Cortana is aging and just, you know, going kind of rampant in a sense of a way.
Oh, that's 4.
Oh, 4, my bad. So, you know, it impacts us because, like, you know, Cortana's probably a fan favorite, and, you know, we just want to know what the best is, and, you know, how to fix, you know, possibly we could fix her, or, you know, like, I don't think anyone would blame her for, you know, going crazy, if you want to call it, but, like, you know, technology and stuff like that, it ages and stuff, so I guess
so
yes. Yeah.
In the book, there's, and forgive me if I don't quote it directly, I listened to the book at like 200% speed, so I've got, you know, everything was a bit moving fast. There's a bit where Chief is sort of reminiscing about what happened to Cortana, and he's like, if he'd followed protocol and deactivated Cortana, he wouldn't have been able to save humanity, and she wouldn't have saved everyone. And then he talks about how he thought she was dead, and she had come back, and all this time in like in the Forerunner system and stuff had changed her, and he was really questioning like what had happened to Cortana while she was in there, and I understand what she was. It kind of feels like a setup of Cortana maybe coming back to being a character that is supposed to be on her side again, and it seems like it's kind of setting up for that and preparing people to stop seeing her as the enemy. But I think with what we were talking about before, where Chief has become like really an emotional character, whereas before he was kind of stoic. He had personality even in Combat Evolved, but he was always sort of he wasn't the emotional core of any story in Halo. The emotional core was usually people like Cortana and Johnson and Keyes and Miranda Keyes, and it was all the characters around Chief that sort of built up the emotion. And 343 kind of took that away when they got rid of Cortana. And I feel like they tried to sort of supplant it with Blue Team. It just didn't work the best in Halo 5. But with sort of just Chief being by himself, the story doesn't really work when he's, the way he is, because he's not. That's why I guess they've tried to shift him to being a more emotional character. And I think that's kind of the role of the pilot in Infinite as well, if he sticks around for the plot, is he's sort of more the emotional center of the story, so Chief can go kick ass and save the world.
Yeah, I only hope, from what we've seen, I think he's a really interesting character. I think he might end up being one of the best characters 343 has developed, because I never was a big fan of Lasky or the others. I felt like they were a little flat, at least in the games. I hope the pilot isn't just, I want to go home. I hope there's more to him than that. Because so far, that's what they've shown, but I mean, if that's just a big core of how he is in the game in general, and there's more there, I'm fine with it.
Shirley, in response to what you said, Halo Cat said, I would like to remind everyone that they also did show her to be effective in other ways. Basically, she is not a threat, so long as she does not know, and Kelly does compare her to the devil. If she does know, you get the fuck out.
Yeah, Kelly said, speak his name and the devil doth appear, or something like that. She keeps telling everyone not to say Cortana's name. One thing... one thing that struck me while reading the book, and like a link to Infinite, was Chapov specifically. I mentioned how Chapov was one of my favorite characters in the book. He kind of... You
just like saying his name.
Yeah, well, I can actually remember it now. No, he kind of struck me as in a similar role to the pilot, like Brohammer in Infinite. Is he seemed kind of like not that he didn't care what Chief thought, but like he was willing to like stand up to Chief, even though he was trying to prove himself to Chief. And like he was genuinely useful. And one of, I think, the most striking moments of the entire book for me was when Chief like puts his hand on Chapov's shoulder and he says like legendary. And it's like, what you've done here is legendary, and you're a hero, and you need to know that. And that kind of connection between Chief and another character, because he was talking about how he saw sort of a lot of the UNSC as people that needed to be like taught to be the next generation and taught how to, because he was saying he needed to train the next Avery Johnson and Miranda Keyes and that kind of thing. And I felt like that was him kind of embracing that almost parental role of a lot of the troops in the UNSC that look up to him because he's so mythical. And, he was really reassuring Chapov of that he'd done good in his
kind
service.
Of fun to see him as sort of a mentor figure now. He talked about being a legend in 3, but he really wasn't universally known. But now that after Hunt the Truth and like that publication, like a campaign, like now he's such a figure. I kept laughing that he kept getting annoyed at Chapov at the beginning because he didn't realize Chapov was trying to impress him. He's like, who is this kid? Why is he getting all up on my home? And
there's a line from, I think Fred says it, where he says, I think even after we stopped underestimating him, we were still underestimating him, or something like that. The Spartans kind of didn't take him seriously, even after they, were like, oh, maybe this kid's got something. They still weren't taking him quite seriously enough. It's just he was a little overzealous in trying to prove himself. But
I think I really like the idea. If they were to ever send Chief off, I would really like it to be, maybe I'll think about it a bit more, but at the moment I like the idea of a little bit of a time skip and showing Chief just like leading like the new generation, and just leave it as a cliffhanger, like going into battle with the
Kinda
new
like-
generation for like one last time, and it just cuts black and you just hear the finish the fight music, credits start rolling, like, bro, just send him off again, like you said, like the parental
With a
figure,
bang.
with yeah, and like just keep him as the parental figure. He needs to finish it out, but I don't want them to kill him or cripple him or degrade him in any way that, you know, is almost offensive to the character building that went into it beforehand.
You know what
Yeah.
I personally would like to see. I personally would like to see, and this is turning into my headcanon, but who's the main protagonist or the main character in Red Team currently? I forget his name. off the top of my head. Jerome. I knew it started with a J. Imagine a scenario where Jerome and Chief kind of meet up and they become like a new duo almost. And like, I know I mentioned jokingly Metal Gear Solid 2 as a comparison to like some thought I had, but in that game, Solid Snake takes a back seat and becomes a more mythical and like legendary figure that Raiden, the main protagonist you play for most of the game, can't attain. But there's sort of like a passing of the torch in that game
exactly
that I could see Chief doing to Jerome, because you have Jerome, who is a Spartan 2, who Chief knew, but he's also 20 years younger than Chief. He was able to remain youthful because of his time in cryosleep. So Chief can then pass down the torch to this person who has the same origin as him, but has the time to be what he used to be now.
Yeah, and I've actually thought about this at length, is in that the root of the problem is 343 has almost not quite exhausted what they can do with like Chief and everything that we have set up now, but like the lore needs a refresh to continue going. Because like we've been saying,
that's the thing.
There's no covenant and that sort of stuff.
But they tried. That's the thing. They tried with Locke. The whole point of Locke was future-proofing the series. They wanted a game where this new character could come in and obtain the mantle of like main character, but they just didn't execute it well enough with a compelling character.
It's the same thing with everything. It was too jarring.
I think Jerome was a much more natural. Was a much more natural
all they did
candidate.
With Locke was give us Halo Nightfall. That's it. That's really all.
Yeah, it was Halo Nightfall and like a little bit of background.
My two candidates for my two candidates for like a passing of the torch style protagonist would be Jerome or Buck. Those are the two that people are actually familiar with enough that you could sort of pass it off to them, and it wouldn't be too bad. They kind of tarnished Buck a little bit with some weird stuff here and there, but I think Buck is something that people would be willing to accept because we've had a lot of time to grow with Buck. He's been in a bunch of levels.
I'm just gonna put this out there. I'm still all for them flash cloning Johnson and just slapping him in there.
But Buck would not
Spartan 5.
Yeah.
Buck would not be the same, only because he is number one. I think because people know Nathan Fillion a bit too well at this point, and from like Firefly and a couple other the cult classics that he's been in, and also because his character inherently is not this quiet, stoic, you know, archetypal, strong warrior sort of character.
And I really don't think it needs to be.
But it would.
No.
It would. If you do that, think of it like
it would be a tonal shift.
It would change Halo's narrative completely to this from what it is now. This strong warrior archetype character who just radiates strength and heroism and legendary legendness, whatever.
It's an over exaggerated example, but like Punisher to Deadpool kind of thing of like it being
and like this is the focus now is like, no offense, I love Buck, but just like this goofy sort of wise joke cracking guy all the time. Really?
He's like Johnson more. He's comedic relief. He's not meant to be the star.
But Johnson's still a badass. No offense, I love.
Yeah.
I don't get the strong man warrior vibe from him. I get the guy who's good, but I mostly end up focusing on his wise comedian. You know.
If they put him through
he's a good supporting character.
Yes, he's
but
not main
to talk about.
material.
I keep bringing up Johnson because this is something I
should have made
believe.
Rookie a Spartan.
You said
Oh,
what?
God.
Oh God,
Yes.
please.
Rookie could have
Yeah.
Of course, he just wouldn't have said
been.
anything
Oh,
ever.
thank
Yeah.
Rookie could have easily been a candidate, but something I want to bring up because I have mentioned Johnson a couple times is I feel like Johnson was meant to represent the on the ground Marine of the series. Like he's supposed to be the UNSC's balls. He's
The core
the
ain't paying
perfect
us by the
representation.
hour.
Exactly. He has all the one-liners. He's tough as hell. He's a regular human. To the average player, he's just another human. Obviously, he's a Spartan one.
He's like the
But-
modern day definition of a Marine, basically, like rough, tough.
I would
Yeah,
love to
He acts
see.
exactly how we do.
He's
I would love to see a
he was based
character-
on he was based on what is it? I forget his name from Aliens. The sergeant or whatever in
Oh,
Aliens.
the-
That was the character that he
Yeah.
was based on, and he's that kind of strong man.
But what
funny.
I want to get at is that the Marines in Halo 4, they were just kind of there. There was nobody to represent them,
Oh,
really.
God.
Yeah, the Spartans.
Oh, you mean? Sorry for cutting you off. You mean Sergeant Matthews? Yeah.
But in 5, I mean, you could argue there's no Marines in 5. You have like those humans that are sort of like they're basically reskinned Marines. But anyway, I would love to see, since Marines are making like a more prominent return in Infinite, I would love to see like a character or characters embody that group a little bit better. They don't have to be a carbon copy like tough as nails, old school like Johnson type character, but I want to see a better representation of humanity out. I mean, the pilot may be that is the representation of the UNSC and the humanity at that point in time. But I definitely feel like that aspect of the universe, that faction needs better representation because Chief is separate from that, so he can't be that for them.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it almost feels like you have like the Master Chief who's all badass, and then you have like the Marines in like Halo 4 and Halo 5, and they're just like, eh.
They're there.
They're just there. Yeah, they're
See,
just.
and
Yeah.
I think genuinely the most interesting part of Shadows of Reach is the relationship and the sort of mutual respect and camaraderie that builds between the Spartans, who at first almost feel like they're above everyone else, and not only the Marine complement that they're sent with, but also the militia that they find on Reach. They sort of build up this rapport and this this trust and this respect with everyone they work with. And I finished the book last night, and I've been playing Combat Evolved pretty extensively since I did. And it's that feeling of camaraderie with the Marines is something that CE just had so well. You get the Marines that are like, look, it's a Mark V, and it's just all the you feel like you're fighting with the force of humanity behind you, as opposed to Chief being his own isolated, killing machine. That kind of the later
He's not
games
the
seem
Doom
to.
guy. He does have
Yeah.
an admiration of these Marines, and it's always, I gotta tell you, going around the mission and finding Marines who are instantly like, yeah, look, a Spartan, and just having them like hop in your Warthog and follow them, you're
Voice
like,
actor
bro,
work.
like, yes, this is
Yeah,
great.
having a
Like,
Marine on your gunner turret is like the most
awesome.
Halo thing I can think
Yeah.
of. And that's just like in Halo 5, you've got nothing but your other Spartans that are in a Warthog with you and that kind of thing. You don't have these sort of, like it's almost a parental relationship. You have to okay, so as I was playing CE, like I said, I've been playing it pretty extensively since last night. I got the achievement called, I think, Beachhead, which is storm the silent
losing any
cartographer beach.
Marines.
Yeah, without losing any Marines on Heroic to Legendary.
It's
I got
so
that. And I
good.
was like, yeah, it's like that kind of, you have to like protect them, but because they're
Yeah.
like, Chief is the big man in charge.
The amount of hours as a kid I spent making sure that I could prevent every Marine death possible and make sure they all got out, just so in my head canon, when the level was over, I was just like,
Bro,
all right,
I have an
sweet,
army.
they all retired.
Yeah, like, bro, you
I
on the
want-
mission with like an army behind you.
Yeah,
like,
I want Chief in front, storming into like Forerunner buildings, clearing out Covenant with the entire armies of Marines
Of
just
Marines.
backing him up.
Yeah, there's a
Like-
whole
Yeah.
slogan
That'd be
like in
great.
CE where it's like that picture on, I think it's like the first mission where it's like
Yeah,
a
it's
picture of
silent-
Earth and it
silent
says
cartographer.
fight for her. Yeah, so like
Yeah.
the Marines are like the backbone, and it made you feel so much better when you were playing as the Chief, because you're not just playing against like just little wimps or anything. You're playing against like men that are fighting, and they want to fight with you. So I definitely
Yeah.
think the Marines are great.
I'm gonna have
They
to.
all looked up to Chief.
All right, it
Yeah.
was awesome.
Yeah.
Dude, thanks for coming.
Yeah, it's good. Good being here. Sorry, guys, I gotta head out.
No, dude,
that's all
thanks
right.
for stopping by, bro.
Yeah,
We'll see you,
good.
we'll see you again soon.
We're
I
just
gotta head out
chilling
as
now.
well,
Yeah.
so I will see you all a little later.
All right,
Yeah,
have fun,
Jamal.
Jay. Yes, sir.
Alrighty, Jamal.
Have fun in your car.
While we're connecting to Halo CE, oh, this is getting intimate. Now that we're connecting to Halo CE, I do want to
Love
go back
CE.
to what someone said earlier about the level design being similar to Halo. I don't know if you guys ever like keep track of these things, but IGN put out a like live stream or like a hour-long video of like the OG. It's Marty O'Donnell and some of the other OG Bungie guys watching a speedrunner play Halo 1. And it's actually kind of funny to watch them go like, "Oh, he just broke the game. How did he do that?" Because they're like, "Oh, great, we were shitty developers." But anyway,
Yeah,
when they
I know
get
you
to
go around the back of the island was a long-standing speedrunning tactic
Yeah.
since the back in the day.
But
Yeah.
when you get to when they got to the second level, they talk about how the second level became the staple example of how they would set up or how the sandbox would operate.
Absolutely.
I think in some ways that the way that Infinite is going back to its roots is by adopting Halo the level from CE approach to things where it's open but it's linear, and there's multiple objectives and you can attack them in different ways. I mean, CE obviously it's not some like groundbreaking
Yeah.
revolutionary like non-linear game, but like it's open enough to make you feel like the world is alive and you can do things differently the different times you play it. I think that's more of what they're going for, is like a semi-open it's you have your own choices, do what you like, but it's within reason. I don't think and to go back to what we were talking about earlier about it being akin to Red Dead, I don't think that's what they're gonna do. I don't think they have the resources for it, and I don't think it's right for Halo. So I
And I
definitely
don't think they'd be the right team to do it if
No.
they tried.
That
I wouldn't want it. I wouldn't
This-
want
I wouldn't
a
want it either.
Dead-esque open world, please. I would be more than happy with an ODST-esque or like a Halo the level to esque, like it's open but it's still
people want to see
you have
that sort of
focus.
thing. I agree. I don't think it's right for Halo Infinite, but there's enough established lore within the Halo universe to allow games to be created alongside the same way they, albeit better, hopefully better, that they did with Assassin's Creed, where they made the main story and then they started branching off into different characters,
Yeah.
although in the same sort of branch of the story. And there is enough established lore within the universe to allow the creation of new games like Reach or like ODST that branch off from Master Chief.
Absolutely.
And put different aspects into those games that are not the typical first person shooter. An open world game, people have been asking for open world Contact, Harvest,
Stealth
with Johnson forever. Like things like
Yeah,
that. Like
true.
there's enough things that they could do with different characters and experiment that they really should be doing this.
Yeah, Halo's universe
Yeah.
is huge, and we just get such a limited picture of it in the games because we're always strapped to Chief, with the exception of Reach,
Yeah.
which I have my own problems with because,
So you mean the greatest game ever made ever?
I'm a big The Fall of Reach fanboy, so the game kind of upset me when
Oh,
it
the
kind
Fall of
of
Reach is amazing.
touched T4, it touched my baby. But yeah, like that and ODST, with the exception of those, we get like a very limited picture of the universe from just the games alone, and there's just so much there and so
Yeah.
much going on. It's such a
It's
rich
also blown
world,
up
and it's
over
kind of
the
a
past,
waste.
like 9 years. You know what I mean?
God.
That's pretty much the reasons that for the next installment after their Infinite 10-year plan is it's not going to go forward. It's going to go backwards.
Wait, say that
Go
again?
in series rather than the forward.
Wait,
Yeah,
say that
he's,
again?
he's saying that
I was gonna
it's going to
That
go
is,
backwards
after
into the forward.
Infinite's 10-year plan, they're not going to go forward. I don't think. I think they're
They're
going to
gonna
go back. They're going to go back to the beginning of the Covenant War because
This is something
there's not a whole lot of story there unless they keep reintroducing. Oh God, here's Covenant Part 3. They're not really, but now they're.
Oh, so you're saying they're
Well,
when they're done with the 10-year plan, they're gonna go back and touch on things that happened prior to like Halo,
Yeah.
Halo 4.
Yeah.
There's
And
so
yeah.
much
Hey,
that
to
went
Reach.
into war. It was like
It-
what, a 40-year war, more or less.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, there's
About
there's
that,
a
yeah.
ton of
Yeah.
that
When
they
did-
just.
well, I mean, what the insurrectionists that was going on? The insurrection,
The
the Orion project was going around on 25, I think.
Well, the Orion
Yeah.
project was the early 2500s because that's
Yeah.
Johnson.
Yeah.
far before.
Yeah.
Not to mention,
yeah.
I do-
Again. Sorry, go ahead.
it's important to remember that with them having as much timeline in the series itself, I don't think they're going to do anything with the insurrectionists. They might kind of hint at it, but the one thing that's always separated Halo and Doom, which is kind of interesting to think about, is you don't kill any humans. That's
I
so
beg
the
to
entire
differ.
well,
I
unless
murder
you're a
Marines all the
Marine
time.
doing that,
Same,
other than
same,
that,
as a kid, that same like as a kid saving every Marine. I've definitely played the second level of Halo
You
CE,
felt
killing
so
every
bad when you couldn't save a Marine and you're right
No, you
there,
didn't.
and he gets
I
needles to
teabagged.
the chest. You feel so bad.
Oh,
I mean,
you were saying.
I
What were
will
you saying?
say that yeah, if you're a Marine killing bastard, then that's that's your problem. But the whole premise is you're not really supposed to kill them, and you never have, and you never will. So if you go into the insurrectionist war, aren't you kind of just playing like Call of Duty, except you're way overpowered? Like,
Power
imagine
fantasy
if you're
god.
a Spartan for a moment and you go and kill
More about
just
human.
these regular human beings, you're gonna smoke and they're not even gonna know what hit them, kind of thing.
I would
I
like
mean,
If it was like,
Go ahead.
I'd be interested in a game where you play as like a Spartan in the process of being conscripted. You don't have any of the Mjolnir, none of the power fantasy. You just have like
do you mean
SPI
like Spartan,
kind of thing?
You mean Spartan Gen 2?
yeah,
So you mean
S2s.
So you mean like
Very-
you start the game off as like a kid playing on the playground and suddenly
Not
you're
like kids, but
abducted?
like
It's like
we
VR.
were like 16,
Oh,
18.
that would be cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
they
would be
want
fun
to
VR
be
game.
more
But it would be interesting to be like a Spartan 3 without Mjolnir, because most Spartan 3s did not have Mjolnir. They had semi-powered infiltration armor, and like that kind of thing with a sort of more stealth, run and gun focus would be really interesting. Where you're not quite just like a regular Marine or an ODST. You're still a Spartan, but you're not that quite just moving tank of a soldier.
Yeah.
Who did we just lose? Sorry, I'm just trying to.
Jamal joined and then left again.
Oh, okay, that's why. Yeah, no, I mean, look, again, like there are so many different things that I'm sure every single one of us here has imagined a different game. I would love to play, like I said, like play as a young kid and literally essentially have a game that did what the movie did badly, arguably, The Fall of Reach. Like, be a kid, play on the playground, fight your friends, like mission, beat your friends at King of the Hill, right? And then you get abducted,
Bit
and then you
older,
have to
yeah,
go through that.
There's,
and you start
there's
or
a
be
part-
an insurrectionist, Gen 1 fighting insurrectionists, like all sorts of things.
One of these segments of Halo Legends is about a Spartan like going back to her home and seeing her own flash cloned, like, wheelchair bound clone that they left behind to replace her.
Yeah, Daisy.
And yeah, and that kind of thing I always thought was really interesting. But like, see, we're talking now of, and I said earlier, the Halo universe is so huge, and just the picture that the mainline games give us of it is very, very small, and the novels kind of have the chance to expand that and stuff, and we get like a lot of additional content. But the thing is, like, I would absolutely love, and I know I'm biased because I work on a Halo fan game, but Microsoft's game content usage rules are so permissive. I would love to see the universe opened up to the community in the same way that like Star Wars was during its sort of Legends universe run before Disney took over, where sort of content made outside like directly of Lucasfilms was considered more or less canon to an extent, and people could like actually go. It's like you didn't have to get like a direct authorization. I mean, you did, but like you could. It was feasible for people to make their own content in the Star Wars universe, and I think Halo has the potential to do that. It's such a big, interesting universe, and there's so much detail that it would be really easy for things to be opened up to allow a lot more content to be made by people other than just 343. Because I think 343's 343 is kind of an interesting beast, and that 343 is kind of a revolving door. People don't stick around for long. They don't have a lot of people that are super familiar.
Contractors.
Yeah, they work with contractors, and a lot of people leave constantly. I know we've got Chris Lee who left recently.
Yeah.
People just kind of go in and out, and
Leave. I'm still not convinced. I think he got pushed out, but
yeah, but having the Halo universe be picked up by people other than 343, it's big enough to do it. And I think that it would absolutely be a huge boon to Microsoft that they have this big property and they should actually take advantage of it like Star Wars did back in the day, as opposed to just sitting on it and making games.
I mean, yeah, and when you really think about it, in terms of, I want to bring it back just because this is where I'm at. In terms of games they could make, who says they have to make games about the Human Covenant War? The Covenant have thousands of years of history that they could just dip into.
Oh god, that one bit in Legends with Thel.
Yeah.
Helvadame.
Vadme, yeah.
Yeah.
Or
that's
actually-
just so interesting with the ancient elites and stuff.
Oh, actually, that's not Thelvadame.
It's No, it's Thel.
The first arbiter. You could just say that.
Yeah.
Name it.
I had his name in my head until I started
the
talking.
sketchy samurai battle.
Oh my god, I love that so
It
much.
looked like a watercolor painting.
Halo
The whole
Legends
time.
2 when.
You guys real quick. The Grunt Rebellion, but you are the grunts.
Dude, can you imagine controlling a grunt?
That'd
Can you
be
imagine
interesting.
controlling
No.
a Yap, and you're
I'm
just
joking.
leading this army on either side. You look around, and there's just thousands of grunts storming down this hill.
No.
You know, like
No,
just
it's gotta be a
cannon
Pikmin game.
themselves, like towards this, like
You'd be
established,
small
like,
as
goal.
hell.
They're
You know
not
what?
small. They're like
you'd
they're
be
like
like the
4.5 feet tall.
They're like the size of a marine, yeah.
Yeah,
But it's gonna be like a
they're like the
Pikmin
size
game.
of
You
a
gotta
marine,
control
but,
a
like-
mass.
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
honestly,
Yeah,
an
but, like-
open world grunt game would be pretty easy to make because they waddle. So like, you could just make it.
Dude, I would love to be storming down the hill and just see
Grunt
grunts,
mech.
grunts
You
on
get a
my left and
freaking
right,
grunt
just-
mech.
just, like, dude,
Yeah.
come on. It'd be great.
Yeah,
I
like
still
imagine
might-
like
Geffin's yelling at you guys the right name.
Oh, I can't hear Geffen. He has
me.
himself muted.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
tell
Gaffy,
low
you're
to
still
me.
muted, bro.
In the chat. Yeah, he's just yelling in the chat.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
foul.
He
Something.
said, I'm currently yelling. Yes. Thank you, my friend.
I still say my dream like ending to Halo Infinite is like credits roll. Something like awesome game has just happened. Chief has won the day, and then it pans out of the ring, and you just see one slip space, slip space rupture, and then another, and another, and another, and just tons of them, and it's Yap Yap the Destroyer coming in.
That has to be the legendary ending that only
yes.
triggers. You have the typical legendary ending, and then you have this one that only happens if you do like some Easter egg in the game.
And
that
it's
happens
lasso
after
as opposed to
the
just
real
legendary.
You play the
Yeah.
game and
And then
like,
it's just
no
Cortana.
The only
Solar
enemies
Fallout.
you kill the whole game are grunts. That's it.
Yeah,
That's
Aw.
it.
it's just it's just
Poor
Cortana on
grunts.
a party looking up to the sky like, my God, it's happening.
Dude, yeah, no, I
Um,
agree. There's so many different things that can be touched on as far as like as
Yeah.
far as the games, and then allowing again, you're right, Shirley, that the rules are so you said permissive, but by that you meant strict, right? Like they're so very tight.
No, I mean, comparatively, no. As
Okay.
I've actually like, cause I've tried. One project I started was I don't know if you guys like Dead Space at all. There was a Dead Space mobile game that was released on iOS and Android, which actually had like a genuinely canon plot that took place in between the first two games.
There's
but
a movie too, an animated.
Yeah, there's a bunch of
movie,
stuff.
too.
But that game was taken off of the app stores. You can't get it anymore. It doesn't work on modern devices. And I wanted to basically take the plot and like gameplay aspects of it and all that sort of stuff and remake it as like a PC game. But the thing is, like, the second you ask for permission or get in contact with anyone, EA specifically, of course, is they just shut you down. You can't touch their IP. So the game content usage rules actually allowing people to make Halo fan content and Halo fan games, as long as they're like non-profit, is actually a comparatively rare thing in the industry. It's not just a general rule. You would think it is. You would think if you don't make money off of it that it's fine. But a lot of companies don't see it that way. So
I think there's a general. Sorry to interrupt real quick. I just think there's a general sort of. Not only it's been a while, and I think people's focuses are not on Halo at the moment. I think if they do this right, and the focus comes back to Halo as a major and focus and player within the industry, I think there'll be a lot more focus. I think there'll be a lot more people willing to dip their toes into creating new content for Halo and touching on different areas that were previously only touched on in lore or books or just mentioned in the games and stuff, which would be really cool because we need more expansion into this world that we can't just depend on 343 to do.
Yeah.
Because right now they're just focused on Chief.
And especially in different mediums as opposed to just games and like, you know, short sort of low budget animated and film stuff. Like
dude, the anime style Halo in Legends was my favorite.
I love Legends.
But I'm a bit biased because I love anime. So, but it was so good. Like, give me a full show like that. I will eat it up.
Halo Korea in the chat just said, I'm amazed by the amount of fan projects in the Halo community right now. And that's one thing, like, it's insane. Yeah. Because the community has considerably diminished. There's a very, we've been, like, losing people. The Halo community has been hemorrhaging people since Halo 4. Heck, even since Halo Reach, a lot of people didn't like Halo Reach. But the fact that the people we have around are just so passionate that, like, I mean, I've been working for like a couple years now on a Halo fan project for absolutely no monetary reward whatsoever. And the fact that there are like multiple teams of people doing that on several different projects, there are so many of them, and it's kind of ludicrous. It's actually really amazing, and it's something that I've never seen in any other IP or any other anything, really. It's not common at all.
Halo's unique in that aspect, I think.
Before you jump into that,
people.
Oops, sorry. Gavin said something in chat earlier that I thought shouldn't go unsaid. We were talking about how like a grunt game would be fun, and he's like, the entire game is killing and rapid mating.
Yes.
Oh God.
Yes. Yes. And rapid mating. Oh well. Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
What is that? I swear, there's like a short or something somewhere where it's
The
like
beaver
the
count goes up,
the
rapid
shit
mating?
duty. The shit duty at a base is the elite who guards the grunt mating chamber. I
What
forget
was
if
that
I forget if
from?
it's a meme
Oh,
or
that'd be
what.
terrible.
Yeah, I remember that.
Oh, hold on.
It was a while ago.
Isn't it like a thing in Canada? The Covenant add stuff to like the grunt supplies to make them like not as intelligent or as capable, so that they are
I
easier
don't
to
know.
I
control.
have no doubt.
Listen,
that
they're
there's-
slaves.
Just imagine
They're
like a grunt unlocking its full potential and becoming like some sort of god warrior. It's like the Covenant's been holding them back all this time.
Oh no.
Listen,
My
they're just
understanding
slaves
is
to the
great.
nipple, man. They're just
Reason
slaves
that
to the
they're-
nipple.
Oh. Can you believe I'm so happy and also like baffled that you managed to remember that the word nipple in relation to the grunts, dude.
What do you mean? The food nipple is literally the grunts.
I know, and
That
I
is
had
their.
totally
That is
forgotten,
their.
and you brought it back up, and I went, "Oh my god, this man!"
It's
just
mentioned
their
brought up-
lives
so
brought up the
much.
food nipple. Wow.
That is the one thing in their lives that is worth anything.
Yo, in fact,
because
they touch
at
on
the
that
end
Their
of the
nipple
day,
lives
all the
revolve
time.
around
at the end of
Dude,
the
they
day, when a
did.
grunt is pinned down in the trenches by a group of Spartans,
Yo, you know,
he's
you think
watching
about
his
the
he's
food
watching
nipple.
his brothers get teabagged everywhere.
Oh,
There's one thing that's holding his sanity together, and it's that if he
Food
gets
teeth.
through today, he gets to get the food nipple next week.
Big grunty
Yeah.
things.
the food
That's a
nipple.
real
Oh my
question.
god.
I want to see a food nipple in Halo Infinite. I demand to see a
The
food
real
nipple in
question
Halo
is,
Yo,
Infinite.
what
That
is
would
what
be
You get to, you get to use it
walk-
like bug bait in Half-Life. You
great.
just chuck it and all the grunts just swarm.
I
Yo,
want to
that
walk
Yeah.
into a room. You know how they sleep and you walk and you kill them? I want to walk into a room where
Yeah.
they're all feeding at the teat, and you're just like, and
What
you
the
don't
hell
even
are
need
we
to kill them.
talking
You
about?
could kill them if you want, but why bother them? They're just having a good time.
They just kind of look
walk
at you
around
and then
them. They're
keep
like,
going.
They're like, yeah. They're like, okay, hi, demon. Like, I'm busy.
You
right
can just
now.
sit
Like,
down next to him.
Yo, facts. Oh god.
That should be a side mission in Infinite. Destroy.
Destroy
They
the
need to give
nipples.
you a little
Destroy-
prompt. They need to give you a
Just-
little action prompt. Press X to like interact, and you just go up to it and you're like, you just squeeze it real quick, and you're like, ugh.
Oh,
Just, like,
perfect
walk away.
timing.
Oh, yeah,
Timing.
we got somebody joining to this right now.
Footed
Footed
Ghost,
Ghost,
perfect timing.
welcome,
We're
bro.
talking about
Yeah.
the food nipple right now. I would love a side mission where it's like destroy Flopiums.
Hello.
What up?
Hey,
Destroy
what's up, bro?
Flopiums.
Hey, Yon, hey, Yon.
Food nipple to starve his.
Okay, and
Starve his
speaking of
nipple.
Yeah.
Covenant species, and going back to the book for a second, we were talking about the audiobook has some interesting voices and stuff. The
Alright.
all the Kidjar voices in the book, in the audiobook, they sound like, I don't know if you guys have ever played it, but the Mad Max game
has the I forget what his name is, but the guy that rides on the back of the car and like repairs it and is like, oh, by the angel, that guy. All the Kigyar in the audiobook sound like him, and it's absolutely hilarious to me.
Jesus Christ. I need to listen to the
I
audio.
did not know that the audiobook was voiced by like different things. I thought it was just one guy reading.
Oh, it is one guy. He just does really bad impressions.
Oh no,
damn.
that's beautiful.
You're serious? Jesus.
He does this British accent for Kelly that just sounds like Malcolm Reed
Oh,
from Star Trek
yeah.
Enterprise.
I've heard
And
of
it's terrible.
All right, so real quick, I'd just like to say, Footed Ghost, welcome to the cast, man. Good to have you.
Yo, thank you, bro. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm so sorry. I got the times wrong, man. I legit thought it was starting later.
No, no problem.
Fuck.
You mind giving our viewers just a quick, brief intro of who you are, real quick?
Yeah, so guys, so I'm a Halo content creator that mainly does kind of like scripted videos. Kind of right now, it's all just focused on Halo Infinite. I sometimes, go into Halo MCC and a few things in that. But in terms of, Halo Infinite, it's more just kind of like looking at what's going on. So recently, I took a bit of a break this month, but I just came back yesterday with my upload on the whole, the development drama and the issues that are currently plaguing 343 Industries. But yeah, so it's kind of a mixed bag of what's going on. But yeah, I do cover a range of things. So, do you want me to break that down a bit more? Let me know.
Yeah, I would love to talk about that for a second because I have my own ideas of how 343 kind of gets some things wrong, and it's not that they're. I feel like it's not that they're incompetent or anything. There are some solid people at 343 who know what they're doing.
For sure.
Halo fans are a very particular crowd, and everyone wants something different, and most of them don't actually want what they want. So it's very difficult to understand what they want. And I feel like 343 is kind of trapped in this echo chamber of a certain vocal crowd of Halo fans trying to tell them what they want, and none of it actually making any sense or being what we want. So it's just a really bad position. Trying to make games for Halo fans is just a nightmare.
Oh,
dude, it makes it so hard.
Because you have like the old diehard fans that want no sprint, they want monotone chief, they want Covenant, Flood. They don't want all this new stuff. And then you have the new people that came in during Reach and 4 who like want all this stuff and they don't like how slow feeling or how sluggish, which I don't feel this way, but I hear it all the time, how sluggish the old games feel. So they're trying to please so many people on top of trying to get new fans. And like, I have my own personal feelings about certain people within 343, but as a collective, and especially like the general person who works there, I feel like they get treated like garbage when they really don't deserve it.
Oh God, yeah. Working at 343 does not sound fun.
I would just like to say, because I forgot to mention earlier, silly enough, in my introduction that I also work on Project Autumn with Shirley and Iowa, who couldn't make it.
Nice plug.
Yes, thank you. But it goes into it because we are working on, our Vidoc, which still has to come out, which is my fault because I'm in the middle of moving right now. So we at one point we talk about how, all of us talk about how the struggles of and argue. I've been in this situation a lot of a shorter time than Shirley and Iowa have, but there's inherently some issues with even making anything Halo with such a rabid fan base who all of them sort of these two different generations want different things. And you have the purists, the classic trilogy people, then you have the people Reach who are afterwards, and then maybe they played the first games. A lot of them haven't, surprisingly, but they know about them. Maybe they've watched some summary clips or like a Halo, the timeline so far, and it's
all those
thing.
ones.
And it's like you need to play them all. I understand starting at Reach, maybe that's when you were born, but it's so hard to make something. Our project lead Iowa said something along the lines of, he quoted Bonnie Ross, who said like, who would ever want to make a Halo game? Like honestly, because you do face so many different differing opinions and challenges with like, do I please this crowd?
And most people don't know how to express their opinions, don't know how to express what they actually want.
I definitely think that you can make comparisons to what Star Wars had to go through when Episode 1 came out, because that was like a 20-year threshold where like the old fans were one way, and then they were
Same
getting
with the
these new
sequels,
fans.
except
Yeah.
one was
Yeah.
decent, the other one
And
was
that's another 20-year gap, and like you're getting to a point
Yeah.
where like people who were in their 20s when Halo CE came out, like early 20s, are now in their early 40s, and like
It's
they're
crazy to
older.
fucking think about.
But I mean,
They're
like,
older.
that's
They
the
have
whole-
lives. This is not like something that they
Don't
can just
remind
spend
me.
all their time doing.
That's
anymore.
why it wouldn't be targeted at those, at those people. Which
And
is,
I mean, most of
yeah.
us here, like myself, I grew up with it because as a kid, my brothers played it, and they were much older than me. But
Yeah.
like most of us here, and most of the people in our server, for example,
Yep.
grew up with Reach. Like that was like their tweens or their like early teens. Halo was
They're
Reach,
still
where they were
teens.
able to.
Oh yeah, for sure.
They're like, Tepic in the chat said, "I'm not saying." He said, "You're not looking at their decisions from the right angle. I'm not saying that what they're doing is good, but from a short-term marketing perspective, everything they do makes perfect sense. Some designs are bad in terms of entertainment value and bad for long-term image of the franchise, but are perfectly valid in another scope."
And I think that's a good point in that we're not looking. I don't think it's so much we're not looking at their decisions from the right angle because they're doing it for all for short-term marketing and that kind of thing. I don't think they're looking at their decisions from the right angle because building every game in a franchise based around the trends at the time is just not the way to go about it. Halo had an identity for such a long time that kind of abandoning it to cater to newer crowds kind of loses a lot of the point. And I think at this point, what Halo is so muddled, and it's something I've brought up, and I know Rex, I've talked about it before because I've talked about it in that circle, is that honestly at this point Halo is so muddled between this clash of new Halo, quote unquote, and like classic Halo or whatever that even means, that it would be so easy to just reset, and that's why I think 343's pitching Infinite as a sort of like soft reboot. And that's why I try not to hit it too hard of like not meeting the standards for what I expect from a Halo game, because it's trying to take things in a new direction. But the fact that it's still tied down by everything that's come before is like a really big hindrance to what it is. Like when you start looking at things like how the Gen 3 armor, how you go from the progression of Gen 1 to Gen 2 to Gen 3, it stops making any lore sense. And like the whole nanomachine stuff with Chief Suit, and
We don't talk about that.
Spartans got rid of thruster packs all of a sudden. It's all just a nightmare. It's this huge like cluster of just all of this junk that's piled up over time. And I think it would just be the easiest to give Halo a new identity and just kind of start over. As awful as that sounds.
Real quick, and then I'll let everybody else talk because I've been talking too much. Is that what
Yeah.
happens?
I'm a
when
hopping after you.
Bet what happens, and this is a life lesson for some people too. Maybe a life lesson for 343 as a company as well. Something I had to
I'm
learn.
listening.
When you try to, so what they're doing right now is they had an identity, and everybody liked them for it. Okay, arguably, obviously, it was Bungie beforehand, but there was an established identity, like you said, Shirley. They were doing one thing this way, and everybody liked it. They made a few improvements, like, they threw it down the bubble shield and the trip mine. It was nothing crazy. People loved it, But what happens when you shift your identity to cater to emerging markets and trends? What happens is, you had people who grow up with the new trend, the Reach people, right? Then you change it. Now the purists, the Reachers, and they don't like the new one. Right, those two groups. Then you have a fourth one. Now the purists, the Reachers, the Infinite people, and then they don't like the new one. So what happens when you try to cater to everybody and follow the new trends is that what you do is you get a group of people who like you, and then you change, and eventually nobody likes you no matter what generation you're from or they're from. Because you change every time. Nobody at all is gonna like you, no matter what generation they're from. So it's like
and people can be so picky.
Don't change
and
for other people is the lesson. There you go.
Yeah,
Halo always evolved on its own terms.
Yeah, people. Halo fans are some of the pickiest fans in the world. And like you even see like Reach heads. Like I'll name drop Sizzle real quick.
Reach heads.
You'll see Reach heads like Sizzle, who's like, yeah, I don't even really like Halo 3 much, or
Sizzle,
like.
Sizzle.
I've had someone tell me Combat Evolved is unplayable.
This game after 10 years.
Oh my god!
Damn.
He's so angry.
Yeah, I have this one
I don't
guy
love
who I'm
Halo
friends
3,
with on
but,
Xbox, This guy is as OG as it gets. He played Halo 2 back in the day, got rid of his Xbox, had a life, came back when MCC started getting more popular this year, bought an Xbox One, and all he plays is just Halo 2. He is that pure.
Dang.
He's like, everything
Yeah.
got ruined after 2. 3's terrible. Everything 3 and on is
Jesus
terrible.
Christ, wow.
He
So-
literally is like only Halo 2 all day, every day on MCC. He bought an Xbox One just to play Halo 2.
I've actually not heard of that before. That's
And like his
mental.
callouts, and it's so awesome to play with him because his callouts are like stuff I haven't heard since I used to watch my brothers play. Like it's like
Oh my God.
OG stuff.
Jeez.
Yeah,
MLG,
But like
Yeah.
you have fans like that too, that like and that's how it's gonna be, where people are just like, I like this thing, everything that came after it was garbage.
Yeah,
And you just gotta have to deal with it.
Halo always moved under its own power. It evolved based on itself. CE, set the groundwork for what it was, and Halo 2 built off of that. Halo 3 didn't really make a whole lot of progress in like terms of refining things. It just or in terms of like evolving things. It just kind of refined Halo 2.
It added
and it was
another floor
originally
to the
supposed to
house.
be it was supposed to be a part of Halo 2. So there was not a whole lot of progress there. And Reach did this thing where, because it wasn't technically a mainline entry, they kind of discarded what they did for Halo 2 and 3, and I've always looked at Reach as an alternate Halo 2. They went back to the groundwork that CE built, like there's no dual wielding, that kind of thing. They went back to the groundwork that CE built off of, and because it takes place closer to CE, and they were like, all right, so let's build from here. Let's take everything off the top that we added for 2 and 3, and let's go from CE again. And what they did is very interesting. I don't think it particularly holds up as well as the way they evolved for Halo 2. But it was a little experiment for them, I feel, because they've been kind of sucked into their kind of routine of making, 2, 3, and ODST after a while. It was kind of stagnated. But when 343 picked up with Halo 4, with the most recent release being Reach, which a lot of people really liked, they kind of built from Reach, which was, I feel like, the wrong decision, because it wasn't the foremost point in Halo gameplay. It was kind of regressed back to sort of that CE style. There was no dual wielding. All that sort of stuff they just tacked armor abilities on top. It was a little different. And they kind of regressed after that because they built off of Reach, and Reach was, by definition, in my opinion, a regression that was sort of more an experiment. And making that the sort of baseline gameplay that they built off of really fundamentally changed a lot going forward.
You know what? You really struck something that I haven't
Yeah.
thought about that before, and like now that's very thought provoking. So, would you say that Infinite is them now cleaning the slate and starting over by using the groundwork of CE once again, instead of, because I mean, yeah, the way you put it, Reach 4 was definitely building off of Reach, and then 5 was in a similar way to how Halo 3 was akin to Halo 2. 5 is like building off of that.
Yeah, they took Reach and piled on the trends in the gaming.
So would you say Infinite is a more return to form?
I would hope so.
Or I said Infinite. I didn't say Reach when I said that, right?
Yeah, Infinite.
Yeah, I hope so. That's a very interesting way to put it, is that they took off all the fat, all the excess stuff that's been added, and they used the core ideas of CE and then built off that themselves. That would be an interesting way to see how things turn out. That's actually really cool.
You brought up Reach going back to the ways of CE, because you can see a lot of their concept art from CE and Halo 2 and Halo 3 and even ODST that went into Reach. Reach was, from my understanding, supposed to be basically all the stuff that Bungie just never could do in a mainline Halo game, because it was a mainline Halo
the
game
last hurrah
at a time where
that's it. Yeah, the last thing. Yeah.
And if you look at all the stuff, like the Hornet was never intended to have little jet engines. It was supposed to have propellers, but they just couldn't get it to work for some reason. And now you have the Falcon, and
which is awesome.
Just looking at the concept art.
That's why I said I see Reach as an alternate timeline Halo 2, basically. They went back where they started, and they
And like that's another thing Bungie had to their credit, was that they had a gold mine of ideas, and if something didn't work for that game, they'd save it for the next game. The mongoose is the idea of the mongoose is older than CE itself. The idea of the mongoose was always in it. I think they even called it the Dougal, but that might just be that Master Chief Machinima. I don't remember. But anyway,
there's also more that people really don't want to like to think about that they brought up about CE's original storyboard plan of Cortana becoming evil and turning on you instead of the blood being.
Yep.
Yeah,
Isn't that a
about
coincidence?
And
then they went
343
back and used it.
A lot of stuff in Halo 4's
Yeah, well.
plot is stuff that came from Halo 3. A lot of the groundwork for the Forerunner stuff that happens in Halo 4 was laid down for Halo 3. So it's not like everything 343 has done was just this kind of baloney that they just pulled out of nowhere. A lot of it did come from Bungie, sort of unused concepts and that sort of stuff. And I just think the execution, Halo 4 could have been a great, and that's the thing. Everyone looking back at Halo 4 after Halo 5 was like, Halo 4 wasn't so bad, and Halo 4 isn't really that far from a good Halo game. The thing, like Rex said earlier, is that it was just such a huge diversion from what had come before that it scared everybody.
Yeah.
And there's this visceral reaction to it.
We were talking earlier in the cast about how that, obviously, aside from people being purists, and I'm sorry to just take over the conversation again, but aside from you having the original trilogy purists, you have these characters. Along with we spoke about the music too. You have these themes for characters, the leitmotifs, certain music that plays at certain times, which only furthers to embed the emotions and the feelings in you when that music is played at a certain sort of time, like battle music, or something like that.
Yeah.
And then these character, development that's been happening over a specific amount of time. And when you suddenly divert from that, like literal just 180 and zoom off into the distance, like here's where we've been building for 7 years. Skirt.
God,
People
even
are
just
like,
visually.
people are like, what just happened? And that's one of the, in my opinion, I think is one of the biggest reasons that people didn't like Halo 4.
That art
and
style
5.
change.
Yeah, and it's just the
art
music
style
in Halo
change,
4 was different entirely, and they didn't keep any of the original themes or even hint at it really. The Chief suddenly became like a billion times more talk rather than building it up over games. They just went from stoic to can't shut up.
Yeah, they went from like 0 to 10.
Well, that was mostly them changing from the story being told around Chief to Chief being the center of the story. He was the motif.
Yeah.
He had his own inflection and his own relationships rather than the world
you
of
being the soldier, and it's you're planting yourself in the boots of a soldier.
And there's one thing I want to touch on, because I got really angry about this for a few days while I was reading the book. And there's one detail in the book that just made me so upset, and it's so I know Chief in the trilogy, the original trilogy, was always billed as the last Spartan, humanity's last hope to defeat the Covenant, and that was never true. There were Spartans around because the novels were, but he was billed as like the last one that could do anything to save humanity, and he was this sort of this really revered figure within the UNSC and even within the Covenant, and the Covenant called him Demon. He was the Demon, and they were scared of him, and in Shadows of Reach, I don't want to say retcon, but I literally can't not say retcon because it feels like nothing but a retcon to me. They say that Demon is what the Covenant calls Spartans. It's not Chief. They call all of them demons.
I will say, actually, that's been a thing for a good while. See, what you're mistaken
can't stand that.
Well, that's been a thing since Bungie days. What you're mistaken is that Spartans themselves were considered demon, but when they were talking about Chief, they said the demon. He was like the pinnacle of that.
Of all
Spartans,
doesn't RB literally refer to him as the demon, like in Halo 2 Anniversary when like Locke is talking to him? if I remember correctly.
Yeah, just
yeah,
like
but
he said,
Spartan 2s,
yeah,
Spartan 2s were
Beast
always
Mode, sorry.
referred to as demons. Spartan 2s were always referred to as demons.
Yeah.
I was always under the impression and
So
always
was
felt
I,
like,
though,
and
so-
that it
I
was
mean,
just
fair enough,
Chief.
but no, because I mean, the Covenant don't really
No, it
know
was all-
about the Covenant don't really know who Master Chief is until he blows up Halo. So it wasn't like this.
It's
Yeah, but they
It's
don't.
kinda
They
like-
don't call him the demon in CE, do they?
I mean,
don't
they even
think I
call
ever
they even
heard
call
that.
the first they even call the first Arbiter with the Mark of Shame. Grunt calls him a demon. It's
I
just
think-
it's.
Halo
ahead,
2
Precursor.
Yeah,
opening
but,
cutscene,
like-
I think.
Let's refer to the lore master, Precursor aside.
I might have to refer to Gaffin on this, but I was trying to think back to the grunts in CE. I mean, I know they don't talk English, but I feel
In
like
CE, yes, they do.
what?
CE, they do. Yes.
Are you right? I feel like when you come across a grunt in CE, they shout demon. They don't say the demon.
They don't say
Um,
demon. That was Halo
that
2 and
too?
on.
Okay,
That's 2.
well-
I think you're thinking about.
All right. We'll see if Gaffin corrects me.
I mean, that's
Yeah,
I don't know. That's kind of familiar. Interesting.
they you refer
I don't know.
to.
It's kinda like,
Master Chief as big evil cyborg.
It might just be able
It's-
to.
So they call
Yeah.
him. So
it's
Yeah.
it's kind of like in World War II, where like the Germans had like no idea of like the U.S. Marines, and they just started calling them like I can't even think of the word
Well,
now.
okay,
Fucking like
Yeah, World
And
War II is
so,
actually
like,
a good
that-
example. Because I talked
Yeah.
about this with Cole, and Cole had sort of the same problem with me at Iowa. Sorry. And what he said was it'd be like if in the newest Wolfenstein game they suddenly said, "Oh, the Nazis just called all the American soldiers Terror Billy." That wasn't just BJ. It's like it feels kind of, I don't know. It just feels like a shot in the foot of just like, he's
Well-
not that cool. He's not that special.
I get what you're saying, but
Yeah.
it's still true that the Spartans were considered demons, and then the chief is like the most famous of them. So when they speak of him, they mean the demon.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, I
That-
think in
Yeah.
Halo
there's a
Wars 2.
difference.
Sorry to interrupt you there. I think in Halo Wars 2, the opening cutscene where Red Team go into the facility where Aatrox is, right? I'm pretty sure, if I can remember correctly, he says to them, "Run, demon." or
Run,
something like
little
that.
Run,
demons.
little
yes.
demons,
Yeah,
Little
that's
Yeah.
it. That's it.
And
Yeah.
I always thought that was like him making fun of them for being like little chiefs. That
No.
like little
Oh, okay,
demons
yeah,
would
fair
be.
I
Chief
can see what you mean by
Soldier.
that. Yeah.
demons is the
that,
general.
or they
'cause
were
I mean,
just like so small compared to him.
Piss off Chief Junior.
because before
Impersonators or
Chief,
something.
because before Chief distinguished himself to the Covenant by blowing up Halo, they just would hear about these mythical like humans that were ridiculously stronger and almost mythically unbeatable
Yeah.
than the regular humans. They were just known as demons. They were like,
if you guys
you know.
could change, let's. I mean, okay, a general consensus here. Are we more purist original trilogy here, or are we post Reach and onward era fans here?
I'm pretty mixed, but I definitely think
Say
a
like
lot
Halo
of it-
3, Halo 2.
I'm
Yeah.
like
I think a lot of
original
my, like,
ones
knowledge
minus
is,
like,
like, based
tiny
in PUBG days.
aspects.
I still like Halo 5's multiplayer though. Like I'm purist-ish in that way, but I know it's gonna sound weird. I love Halo 5's multiplayer.
I straight up
I was
raised
getting
myself
called out
on
earlier
CE.
because I am one of those
Yeah.
people that's old.
Yeah.
And when Halo C, let me put it like this: when Halo C came out, I was 17, so I'm a
you go.
tad older.
Yeah,
But
I mean, I wasn't old, but when I played Halo PC, actually mostly the trial because I was poor. But I
Oh,
played Halo
yeah.
PC trial just like an unbelievable amount because that game had working multiplayer on Blood Gulch. You could play Blood Gulch on the
Yeah.
demo version, and
Yes,
it like
yeah.
I think it's still active until recently.
So
But I played that. But there are a lot of things from the new games that I sit there and go like, that's great. Like the thruster pack in Halo 5, I love the idea of the thruster pack. The little dodge move just speeds everything up without actually using sprint, which is dumb that we shouldn't
So-
do.
so-
But
The
thruster
biggest
pack
figure.
is great.
So reason for asking is because I think generally overall, I think most people, I think this group at least anyway, is more or less in favor of
Little
not
biased.
totally in favor, a little biased towards the trilogies, a little more leaning more towards the trilogies at least, I'd say.
Yeah.
If you had to, if we could change, if we could retcon anything about Halo 4, imagine we could change Halo 4 and 5. What would we change to make it more
The art style.
Story-wise,
Art style.
Art style.
Story-wise,
Art style.
art
Yeah,
style,
art style.
story-wise.
Art
I'm the
style-
director of art style.
Like specifically,
So-
I'm curious. You guys don't have to touch on this, but I am curious if you guys have any thoughts about how they could change it to focus more on making building Chief up even more as this sort of mythical, legendary, heroic character, even in the eyes of his enemies, as being like the demon. You know what I mean? So like, how would we go about changing that if we could?
Okay, so I actually really love the way in Halo 4 that Chief stands up to whoever the captain of the Affinity is. He's so boring. I don't.
Del Rio.
Del
Del
Rio,
Rio,
yeah.
the
The
worst
way-
old guy
yeah,
ever.
Jesus,
Surrender
yeah.
the
That
AI.
bitch.
But the way he just stands up to him, and then
He's
like
like,
everyone sort of silently sides with Chief. That's gold. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's ruined.
Shout,
Yeah.
shout,
I
shout
think-
out to Roland the AI who.
See,
yeah.
I am
I absolutely love
100%.
that.
I am 100% of the impression that
Oh, no,
Halo
it's Halo
4's
5.
narrative, because I mean, obviously, people are going to say art style, music should have changed this
I
and
thought
that.
the
That's
story
fine,
is
that's what
brilliant.
beats it dead. I think the narrative of Halo 4 is awesome.
It was
I
the,
love-
I, it was the
I
best.
think it's
That's what I think.
narratively, I think everything they did after 4 is where the real mistakes went into it or
Yeah.
came in. I think they should
Yeah.
have kept I think them killing off Cortana should have been a permanent thing that happened and have it affect Chief in a certain way. I think
Sure.
I think the effects would have been greater if she was just gone and there was no getting her back instead of her
was-
coming back and tarnishing
Straight
her
away.
own reputation.
Third mission in,
So-
second mission in.
This is actually something I wanted to talk about with the book. Is that Halo 5? Okay, so I haven't played a whole lot of Halo 5. I'm not entirely certain I finished it. It's hard to get through.
It took me 5 years. It took
but-
me 5 years to
Yeah.
work up the nerve
Yeah.
to beat Halo
It's
5.
a little hard to get through.
Legendary. It's even worse. It's horrific.
Legendary.
It's not even
oh,
5
God.
years. You guys just didn't beat it right off the
The
bat.
AI. The
The
AI
thing-
just.
Yeah, the thing I have is that when Halo 5's credits roll, basically, but like all of Blue Team and as far as I'm aware, Halsey were kind of like on Oni and the UNSC's shit list, as far as I'm aware. Like, because Oni, I mean, sent people to freaking stop Chief, and then suddenly in the book, they're all sort of running these like direly important missions, and they're all on the Infinity, and like Halsey at this point is like straight up a war criminal, and it's kind of odd how they just sort of hand wave these things away.
She
Well,
meant
I actually, if I can interject, precursor.
Yeah, go
I
sorry.
think that they addressed that to a degree at the very beginning with Chief kind of just psyching himself for the mission. He understands that he puts it exactly like this: one of these days, someday he'll have to pay for those mistakes. But right now he has a job to do.
Imagine
I
thinking
think
they were mistakes.
I mean, I think Oni is thinking objectively that they have a use for these people. So whatever they want to do to them or whatever their crimes are, that could come later when Cortana is no longer the overlord of the entire galaxy.
When they no longer have any
Very
use.
evil.
Yeah, precursor, what were you going to say?
Oh no, it's okay. I was just gonna say that, kind of matching on Tom's thought. Halsey also addressed that in chapter 13 of Shadows of Reach. I'm trying to flick through to the exact section. She mentions that Oni had tried to kill her, and that her relationship with it had become very unusual. I'm trying to see if I can find it.
Palmer
That
was
sounds just
literally
like
the
her.
one that took the shot.
Like they're trying to kill her, and she's just calling it unusual. That's very Halsey. Like,
Well, yeah, exactly. She's
strange. Like,
no, she's like, it's unorthodox, but honestly, at this point, and it's just, I feel like they did address it a little bit, maybe not as much as they should have, but I don't think.
Yeah.
I feel like the conversation has transferred a little bit to we're criticizing 4 and 5 a lot, and we're transmitting a lot of that kind of stuff. We're hating it on the book, and I think the book actually is a little bit more nuanced than I think we're giving it credit for. If that makes sense.
I had a lot of classic Halo sort of. There were times in reading this or listening to this book where my brain was like, "Oh yeah, it's one final effort time." So I definitely got a lot of like the classic Halo vibes from it. I don't feel like it sins a lot of the same stuff. It's just narratively, it's kind of trapped in the things that Halo 5 did, and Halo 5 really took a toll on the place the narrative is going right now.
That's how bad the story was.
And
though.
honestly,
It was-
and honestly, I'm kind of okay with that because what I'm hoping is that the book is taking the brunt of the effects of 5's story, and it's allowing Infinite to have more breathing room since Infinite takes place at another. This is already a year time skip between 5 and this book, and then the actual events of
So much they can do
Infinite
now.
are about
Yeah.
6 months after because October to March, that's like 4 or 5
See,
months.
And for being
big
a
up.
year time skip, I think I let go of my push talk key.
Yeah.
For being a 1 year time skip, it really doesn't do a whole lot to clarify what the state of like the universe is at the time. It's still kind of like vague of like the UNSC's just sort of, the infinities, being the infinity. Everyone's just sort of chilling. Some people don't even know about Cortana. We don't really know what's going on. It's just everyone's kind of
Yeah.
all over the place. It doesn't really clarify. Like say the Unicy is just like totally scattered and everything is doom and
That's
humanity's
why
totally
I think
screwed. It's just like
that's why I think Infinite is going to be very self-contained. I think Infinite is going to try and just have that stuff like over there, and then Chief and what he's doing against the Banished over here, and that's what the focus is going to be. Because like they really did write themselves into a corner with
Yeah.
5, and like mind you, the writer of 5, I believe, does not work there anymore. So he
No, he got
wrote
straight away sacked.
them. Yeah,
Revolving
he
door?
wrote them
Brian
into
Reed, yeah.
a corner.
Footed,
But I hope I honestly I wouldn't be mad if the Cortana thing was sort of just kind of like background. That's got to get settled, and that'll be settled. But I don't know. We'll have to see. It definitely depends
Yeah.
on like where they take things. And I mean, maybe they will solve the Cortana thing and what Chief is doing in one go, or maybe the Flood is the solution to the Cortana thing. Where yeah, Cortana's everything is kind of out of whack and disorganized, and
Dude, I
Cortana's
want to
just
see the
kind of
Flood so bad. So
holding
heartbroken.
everything together, and then the Flood is just like knocking her completely out.
So
You never know, the Flood could beat her.
So Footed, because you came in last, what are your so far your ultimate thoughts about? And I think we touched on it briefly. We've all touched on it very briefly. Even the people who were here earlier about the sort of state that 343 is in. And what's going on?
Ooh.
And I know, big loaded.
No, that's all right. I got you, man. I got you. That's all right.
But yeah, what are your thoughts on that? And same with you, Wolf, because you've also been one of the most quiet as well. But what's been going on, and how you think Infinite's going to be, and in what direction it's going?
All right. So I think first with the the development issues, and after hearing Chris Lee step down, at first I was pretty concerned. But I mean, after doing the research for my video and stuff, I'm feeling a bit better because the reasons he stepped down or sidelined were more or less that the game is content ready, or like everything's pretty much done in the content aspect, and he felt it was the right time to step down. And with Joseph Staten coming in and Pierre
Yeah, he had
Heinz,
less to
I
do.
think so he had less to do. And now the thing with Joseph Staten coming in now, he has the job of shipping the game. So he's not got a big of a role as say he did with Halo 2, where that was the development crunch. He's got the role of just getting the game, making sure it ships well, and together, campaign and multiplayer. Because there was an issue as well where I think it was Phil Spencer that was just saying or hinting that Halo Infinite could release separately with multiplayer and then campaign. So those sort of things can't happen.
Free to play multiplayer is a dumb decision.
Oh, I completely
If I
agree. Microtransactions written all over it.
Had an interaction that same 343 developer that I was referring to earlier, and apparently it was originally Microsoft's idea to ship the game separately, and
not surprised.
Yeah, and then before 343 even put their hands into the tell them don't do that because you're just gonna piss people off, they sack the idea themselves. So,
yeah, I don't believe that they'll do that. I think Phil Spencer said what he said in that recent interview as like a worst case scenario. If things are bad where the game is just not ready by if they're like unsure of when the main story will be ready by summer, then maybe they'll decide to do that. But I don't think that's even really on the table right now. But you were saying something earlier and I completely missed it, and I was going to add something. I'm sorry. Can you backtrack just a little bit what you were saying before that?
By me or me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Hang on. P. Heinz, Joseph Staten coming in.
Yes, that's
yeah.
what it was.
He's head of ship. Yep.
My personal like idea or thought about why he left is that he didn't really leave. It's that when things went bad in July and he was still in charge, and then they decided to bring Joseph Staten in, I think Microsoft gradually pushed him out until they got to the point recently where they're like, hey, we think it's better you move on to a different project. We'd like you to make the announcement and we'll back you up on it. You're not losing your job. You're just going to be taken off the project in a respectful way. I think they were trying to do that without having him get kicked off, because I mean, maybe that's to save his career in a sense.
And I think that's what happened.
It would have been a worse look for the game if he had just been totally kicked
Oh,
off.
absolutely, dude.
But I think that what could possibly happen, this is just me speculating, an idea I had earlier today, talking about this with some of the other guys. What if what they decide to do is that they want Joseph Staten, whose job initially or originally at Microsoft is to be that person they send to different studios to help finish the game and get it ready to ship. What if they decide to have him be the lead, at least for story from now on, and give that position of being that guy that they send to is it Chris Lee? It's Chris Lee, yes. They give that position. So what if they kind of switch it off and Joseph Staten ends up being the person who kind of, for the future expansions, runs as lead.
Halo
and then
desperately needs a creative
That
center
would
and a
certainly
consistent
be
guiding
a pretty good idea
force.
to consider.
Yeah, and I mean Joseph Staten, in my opinion.
No, sorry, Tommy. Go ahead. Finish your sentence.
Oh yeah, Joseph Staten, in my opinion, is the heart of what Bungie Halo was. Because I mean,
And Max Hoberman.
Yeah, well,
On
they
the
all
multiplayer side of
collectively.
things.
Wolf.
Yeah.
Wolf, you were gonna say something.
I was gonna say Joseph Staten. I mean, you know, I know some people here have the title of lore master, but that guy is the real lore master.
He wrote it,
basically the whole franchise.
Yeah.
In terms of story.
He's somebody that like legit we want to get in here, because we have our resident lore masters. We have a third lore master actually who we plan on reaching out to, actually, whose name is his handle is Scalemaster117. Stephen Loftus, who helped write a couple of the Halo encyclopedias, actually, believe it or not. And we managed to get
he did like the Essential Guide and I think like
a
3
couple
others or something.
Yeah, and his work is out there. I found him through his old old Angel Fire page. Whoa. Early 2000s, man.
Yeah.
And I was like, who is this guy? He had like legit scale models, 3D renders on his page of all different things, Halo, Star Trek, like Star Wars, all sorts of things. And then I found out who he was, and I was like, dude, like I hit him up, and he was about it. And so we haven't heard from him much. He said he was busy when he joined though. So, but yeah, like we want Joseph Staten to come in and be part of this and talk with us, because he is absolutely.
I highly doubt he has a Discord. I'd be surprised.
Hey, dude, hey, be
never
positive.
know.
Be positive, man.
Well,
Come on.
And
if
if
I make a kind of not pretty close, but Hidden Xperia actually has Marty O'Donnell in his Discord.
Yeah.
Really?
Jesus.
I didn't know Marty.
That's funny because
That's
I
awesome.
actually I remember back in the summer, I think this was July or August, I actually emailed Marty O'Donnell offering for him to join the ARC, because I was like, you know what, fuck it, maybe he'll actually respond. He didn't, but like I shot my shot. You know, I slipped into Marty's DMs
Did
to
you
see if I could
slide
pull
into
it.
Marty O'Donnell's DMs? Is that what you
Yes,
did?
I did.
Did you not offer a food nipple? At least
No, I
as, like,
didn't. See, that's what
compensation
that
for
was the
reading?
deal
Bro.
breaker. That was the deal breaker.
We're back
but-
on the food.
Shame on you,
Yeah.
Tommy.
Even
Shame.
We've gone full
we,
circle.
we never got off the food nipple. The
I've
food
been
nipple
on
was
the
always
food
part of the
nipple.
conversation.
This hand, you can't see this hand off screen, but it's over here. It's
God.
It's on the food nipple.
Oh, okay,
God,
Rex. All right.
No, so
Real quick though, Marty's been more active on YouTube lately. You might have a good.
Yeah.
God.
a lot of Halo stuff as well.
That's where I got his business email from, his YouTube channel. I'm actually a huge fan of his YouTube channel. I love everything he posts on
He's
there.
been posting
But I mean,
some really cool, like, I won't say hidden, but like more like it was definitely filmed, like never intended to be in anything, and he just had it like on his own, like in his like chest of goodies in his attic.
but I
Like,
definitely,
bro.
I actually watch. I'm not ashamed to say I've watched his Steve Vai behind the scenes video at least a couple times a year since it
Yeah,
came
me
out. It
That
literally
was
helps me
actually
out
in
so
the,
much.
if I remember correctly, it was in the collection of Halo 2 in that metal box
There
they
were
had.
bits. There was like a clip or two, but
Not the
like the
full thing, but yeah.
entire session is on his YouTube channel, and it's like
Yeah.
to find out that most of Steve Vai's contributions to the theme and stuff was him ad libbing, and
He
then
just vibed it into existence.
it's
I think
like-
that is
it's
really
like,
cool.
what? But and I'm a huge Steve Vai fan on top of it, so it's just like extra. But I would love for someone like Mario Don to join, but I'm also not. I sent him a very professional email once. I'm not gonna like pester the guy. So like I think at some point when we're a little bigger and we're a little more ready for that kind of thing, I'd love to reach out to someone like Joseph Staten or Mario O'Donnell again. But like I also these are people who like have lives and are busy, and like I don't feel comfortable like, hey, join my server. Hey, join my server, please.
See, and the thing I've actually been talking about a lot over the past couple days is that 343, like I said, I think a lot of 343's trouble comes from they're kind of stuck in a very strange echo chamber of what Halo should be. And I think having a lot of tabs in the community of different people with different opinions to reach out to and be able to like take advice from would really help 343 be able to deliver games that people actually want. And I know it sounds like conceited or whatever, but it genuinely, I feel, would help. And I know they have done like community outreach stuff in the past, and I feel like a lot of the stuff they've gotten and like taken to heart from that were some of the like wrong messages coming from people who were, yeah.
I actually, that you definitely make a good point. I actually want to ask Wolf a question. This is both your opinion or maybe you've heard something from your talks with this guy. How do you feel, or what have you heard about the team dynamic at 343? Does it feel very disjointed, or does it feel like a team of people who know each other and work together and like
So from what because I've not necessarily directly asked him that kind of question. But we did ask, like, who's really working on Infinite? Like, what kind of people work there? Are they just a bunch of, people that are trying to expand their careers or not? And he stated that the people that are working on them, specifically the ones that are in his engineering team, which are the people that they develop the engine and make it to where when you push a button, it does a thing, and when you do a thing, it causes a thing, kind of. And he's a diehard Halo fan. In fact, I've played Halo with him a few times. We played MCC, we played Halo 5, and whenever we played Halo 5, he obviously, I'm pretty critical about the game, and he stated, like, we wanted to do this, and this, but we kind of couldn't because, engine limitations and a bunch of other things along that line. But the people, from my understanding, that are working on it, they're Halo fans through and through. And to quote Frank O'Connor, in a meeting with him, he asked, so are we going to put out a bad game? And he said, we're not going to put out shit if it's shit, because they're not going to do a Halo 5 again. And for that's a good sign.
That's reassuring.
It is.
Yeah.
But
I'm glad they're coming from the right place, but I'm still skeptical.
It's kind of dangerous because the definition of what they consider good and bad is not the definition of what everyone else considers good and bad. Like, I have faith that they're going to do just fine, by all means, but they're not going to be able to please everybody. And it doesn't help that occasionally they have certain things like the shotgun and Magnum debacle.
Yeah, see, that caused a bit of issues for some people. But
I actually want to talk about
that is most people are completely unaware that that was not 343's doing. That wasn't Microsoft either. That was someone that worked at 343 that decided, we're going to axe it. Because from what I was told is the guy that I talked to said, and I just used it last week, that's news to me. I'm pretty sure we're about to have a meeting about it on Monday. Because the classic shotgun in there.
Just used what?
I'm sorry?
You said I just used that last week. What were you referring to?
The classic shotgun. is what the guy that I talked to was referring to. The Bulldog is not the only shotgun in that game.
Okay.
At least not from what he was talking about. He said that he just used the pump action previously that week.
At least at some point during
At
development.
some point during the testing, yeah. And for them to come right out and say the pump action is not going to be there, it's going to be the Bulldog, was news to people that worked at 343 as well. So someone else that was higher.
They've got some controversial stuff going on between
Crazy.
their own
That's
employees
crazy.
right now.
Yeah. And
That's rough.
yeah.
So,
and it kind of sucks to hear stuff like that. And if it's coming from that high up, because like I said, the guy that I talked to is the senior engineering manager, and he didn't know about it. That means that it's someone that's pretty high up in the totem pole.
Communication's pretty bad there. That's everything I'm hearing.
Like
Which is a worry. But
the developers and the executives are disconnected. So.
Yeah, I was asking that question just because, like, you look at Bungie and like how they at least presented themselves, and it felt a lot like a group of people in a big room working together. It felt like an office of people who were co-workers, and you don't really get that feeling from 343. You get more of a like disjointed. There are sections.
They
and-
outsource a
Although
lot.
Yeah, I have heard that. Yeah,
That is
outsourcing is a huge problem.
True.
Like, okay,
that actually
so
has to do with Jason Jones, because if you watch some of the old vidocs of Bungie Studios, it really was a big ass room with 2 floors, and that was it. It was just a bunch of dudes.
pizza, Mountain Dew, and Doritos.
Dude.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I think I told. Sorry to just chime in, but I always love this whole startup vibe. You mentioned it, and I love this whole startup vibe that like either like game companies or like regular companies have, when it's really just like a bunch of sweaty people in a room. Like they got 2 couches, pizza boxes lined up, some jerry rig computers, there's wires all over the place. Shirley, I'm pretty sure I told you this. Shameless sort of self plug, but not really, because it was really cool. If you go watch, ooh, I don't know who that was.
The text. I'm sorry.
You're good. I vibrated my eardrums.
I was on the desk.
I met. I think I'll have to find it. I think honestly, it was the making of Halo 2. It was some Vidoc about the making of Halo 2, and there was a guy in it who was only shown like twice, super briefly, whose online handle was Keet, Kete, and I was at a Starbucks once, and I saw this guy repairing an iPhone. He had a whole setup, like on this big Starbucks table, repairing this iPhone, and he had a Bungie 7th column enshrouded in flames on his hoodie, and I was like, bro, that's an awesome hoodie. And he's like, yeah, I got this from the Bungie retreat, and I was like, what?
Oh yeah, the triathlon that they have.
And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, oh, well, like I used to like be tight with some of the guys at Bungie, and I was like, you mean like Halo? And he's like, yeah. I was like, you worked with them? He's like, no, I was just friends. And he's like, they invited me up to like the cabin, like for like this week long like pizza drinking Halo LAN party thing they used to do. And I was like, what? So he pulls out his laptop and he shows me, and he's like, he's in the documentary. And I was like, sorry, I had to, you mentioned that environment, and I got so hyped because it was so cool, man. Those are the best games.
You're either talking about.
Like,
I know what you're
they're
talking about.
there,
You're
and
either
it's
talking about
their
one
whole-
of two things. What Bungie had is they had like a pentathlon or something. They had a funny name for it, but it was like a week-long event that they'd have where they just exercise and like do things
No, it
outdoors
wasn't-
because
it
they knew
wasn't
a
that
crunch
one.
was coming. So it was the one where the guy who's a part of Bungie hosts LAN parties in Connecticut, which is the state I'm from.
Up in like a
LAN
cabin
parties
somewhere.
in a cabin, and then they'd
yeah.
get a bunch of TVs, projectors, and they'd
Yes.
have like multiple
my
games.
God.
I know what you're
my,
talking
my
about.
point was that some of the best games that come out are like when people are like, you rent a studio, and the only reason you have the studio is because there's like 10 people. Every one of them's not only they're just working, but they're also everybody's chipping in for the rent and whatever. And there's no real formal living arrangements. You're sleeping, you're sweaty, you go shower at the gym or something, and you make a game for like a year and a half. Like,
yeah,
some of the best
it's
games
where you
ever.
don't have like leadership. It's
Yeah,
where like no one person's in charge. You're all like equally involved. But like
that's-
when they have, like
that's the big
specific leaders, then it kind of like just downgrades things because they're like, yeah, I'm your boss. You're gonna do what I say. It's like, then why am I working here?
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest issue with 343 is it is owned entirely by Microsoft. And that's one of the things that Bungie, even today with Destiny, they don't have to worry about because they kind of run their own shit. And if you go watch their current bidocs, even on Destiny, you can tell that Jason Jones is still running that place because they're just like, they make fun of each other, they tell jokes during the day, they, wipe the Cheetos off their fingers and go play video games. And that's just the company. And that has to do with leadership rather than it,
I think a positive work environment definitely had a lot to do with the quality of the Halo games that came out.
If you're not happy, why are you doing it?
That creative environment is what leads to the kind of games that Halo
and then that
the
begs
Halo
the
trilogy were.
question. That begs the question of how that's affected 343 so far, and how it's affected them even more with COVID, which just adds another wrench in the dynamic and the creative barriers that are there. Because now you're stuck at home trying to access your computer that's at your place of work. There's tons of issues. You're just sitting by yourself. Like, it's just an even worse environment, and you're having to make a AAA game.
Yeah,
with a time limit.
With the 343 that I continue to talk to, they actually send them like a little dev kit of a little computer that is specifically for developing it, like they're developing Infinite. They give them the dev kit for the new generation Xbox, which they do actively play on Xbox Live, and it's really annoying because the guy that I play with on Halo will always load in way faster than we are, and he's just sitting there and he's like, no. And it is a little bit frustrating, but they have everything that they need to do the job. It just, they don't have, it is kind of like, I mean, it is working from home, but the issue comes right down to instead of just leaning over and asking like, hey, is this a good idea? You have to call someone up and make sure that their kid is not screaming in their ear and ask them the same question that would have taken you 2 seconds to
And
ask.
it's got to go up the totem pole.
Yeah. Totem pole. It's people have their lives, and because they're not actively always at work, you can't just ask someone if it's a good idea. You have to spend 2 hours and figure out if it's a good idea, and that's why.
And you also talk to the higher points of the totem pole. You can't shout across the office anymore.
Exactly.
You have to send a request.
Yeah, and it's like you pick someone to ask that you think it would be in charge, and they're like, well, I don't really know about that. You should probably talk to this person about that instead. So it's like, okay, I gotta wait for them to be ready. So
cool. I'll have a meeting with Bonnie in a month, and then we can talk about it.
Yo, did you guys know I'm scheduled to have a charity boxing match with Bonnie? No lie, it's gonna be big.
I donate.
Big. They're gonna give us mocap. They're giving us mocap suits because our fight is gonna be in the next game. So
nice.
It's gonna be nice. Civ, you are so righteous, my man, bro. He's still muted, which is ridiculous because it's on your end. I love you, but it's on your end.
Civ is just flexing right now.
Whatever. Still no.
Did you draw that?
You drew that. I love you. He took the time to draw that. I don't know why. I'm going to specifically add you to the VC perms because I have zero idea why you can't. Did you restart the whole thing?
How many letters? I love that he's just flexing with the ODST flag in the background.
Yeah, and the lights.
He puts my room to shame. I just have balls.
I'm like legit adding you to the perms.
Make him an admin.
Mine's worse than yours.
Who knew Gordon Freeman had LED lights in his room?
He's just listening to us talk like a guy at the end of the tavern, just whispering to himself, "Amateurs."
Yeah. I wish I could stream right now. I'd drink out of a mug.
But no, basically what's going on with 343 and the delay was inevitable. I mean, if
yeah,
if they didn't do it, more concern because no one could factor in the pandemic.
Yeah. And I mean, all criticism aside, I still am very confident that Infinite is going to be the best 343 game to come out. I think that they have
Oh,
put in
absolutely.
time and effort
I
into
think
making a
by
product I'm going to be
by
happy with
default.
personally. I think I'll be happy, but I mean, I'm not hard to please.
I was
And-
already
and
happy with the
as long
gameplay.
as long as it's not
I'm
fun,
saying, I think I will enjoy it. It may, regardless of how I feel about it as a Halo game, I think it's going to be a good game, and I think it will bring new people into the series. I just may not particularly agree with the direction they're going with it. But the weird thing with 343 that you have to keep in mind whenever you think about them is they are in an incredibly weird, incredibly unique position in the industry. They're not a development team that was founded because they wanted to make it. They exist to be the Halo machine. They were made to make Halo games. They didn't get, they're not like, oh, we're a little burnt out on Halo. Let's go make a new IP. They are the Halo developers,
they don't
and that's
get
all
burnt
they
out.
get to do.
They're not allowed to get burnt out. When they
Yeah.
get burnt out, they step away.
Yeah, they are Microsoft's Halo machine. They replace Bungie as it's like the cyborg Bungie.
Something I've been thinking about, and this may be moving on to Xbox as a brand. Now that Xbox is putting more effort and resources towards more exclusives, could we see in the next decade a time and place where Halo is no longer the flagship and something takes over to become the next face of Xbox?
That's the
That'd be
thing is
interesting.
I want to say yes, but at the same time, no matter
Hope
what
not,
you say,
but,
Xbox, whenever someone mentions Xbox, typically they think about Halo. You don't think about Gears, Crackdown, and Forza.
Never
I bought
what do you
my
mean? Every time
Halo
someone
3.
brings up the brand, I think of Forza, personally.
Really?
No.
Really?
I bought my Xbox. I'm in an interesting situation because, like I said, I raised myself on like Halo PC trial, and I couldn't. It was like at that point where it had been out, so buying PC games in that time was a bit. There's no Steam. You don't just go buy CE on your web browser or whatever.
Oh, yeah, they have like the Steam.
Yeah, I
Oh,
couldn't
crap.
actually get a copy of the game, so I just dealt with the trial forever. And by the time I actually got a copy of Combat Evolved and played it through, it was like 2007, and the Halo 2 Vista was a thing, and somehow I caught a glimpse of Halo 2 Vista existing, and even though Halo 2 had been out for 3 years, I, in my little closed bubble, went, wait, they made a sequel to Halo? And it was like 3 years after Halo 2 had come out, but it was just coming to PC. So I was like, oh my god, I've got to get this. So I got Halo 2 Vista, I played through Halo 2, and suddenly it's like, yeah, Halo 3 is coming out in like a week. And I was like, what? I thought Halo 2 was brand new. So I went out, like, legit bought a 360 to go play Halo 3, and that's my relationship with the Xbox brand, is like, I just suddenly, I loved CE. It was like most of my childhood, and then suddenly in 1 year I got slapped with the ability to play Halo 2 and Halo 3 back to back. It was the greatest thing.
That's gold.
That's
So I'm just like completely. Halo is the only reason I owned an Xbox. So
That
I
that
have a
that's
quick story for you guys if you want to hear it.
yeah. Go ahead, Newell.
So, I don't know if you guys know. I think everyone here knows I'm a Zoomer. And
We know,
one of,
trust
and
me.
one of the things I used to do at school was I got a copy of Halo CE Portable. Oh shoot, my mic. Can you hear me? Hello.
Yeah.
I got a copy of Halo CE Portable on my school computers, and me and my friends
Oh,
would have
God.
mini LAN parties during Robotics Club. It was so fun.
We had somebody in our school figured out that there was a backup server accessible to others called // meal ticket. I don't know why it was there, but it was, and it was basically empty. And so people uploaded Quake, they uploaded Halo, they were trying to upload the third Call of Duty at one point. It was awesome.
Yeah,
But
those
just
are
going,
everywhere.
logging into the library and just like playing. Like there was at least any given day there was about 36 to 40 people on Halo 1. Like
Bro,
playing on
like
the back
LAN
server,
is
and it
so
was like,
fun.
dude,
You can get like
it's
Counter-Strike
if
SoRs. You
you're
can
in
get
the
like, oh
same
my
room-
god. So good.
have I trust all of you have been in an actual LAN party, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Only the school
Technically.
kind.
Technically.
It is
Well-
the most enlightening. And if you didn't get to go to Outpost they had a ton of computers.
Wish that
and,
was in Australia.
You said what?
Nah, I wish it's in Australia. The Outpost thing.
Oh yeah,
No,
dude.
that was the
For
biggest
sure, I
thing.
feel that. It was so
So bad.
It was so nice to be able to sit in an area with people. Most of the people I didn't know. I was with a group of people I did know, but like 8v8, and to just stand up and look at somebody and be like screw you, like I'm gonna kill you, like to just be able to rage at them face to face and have the whole team laugh and be like, I bet, like let's kill them, guys. You know, like there's something so much more. Halo's always been that way. Where you
I always played Halo split screen with friends. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
God, I can't believe they got rid of split screen.
You know, the same way. Sorry, Halo is what I view that as. You know, it's just you can't. When I think of the gaming experience, like what's been the best, I don't know, gaming thing I've had, or same experiences that you guys have had. I think Halo. I don't know, just there's so many like memorable experiences with Halo and mates. You know.
Dude, what other game can you and one friend sit down and split screen and load up an empty map and have fun? Like, you just load up a match with 2 people on, like, Valhalla or something. It's the only game where that's, like, enjoyable. It's like, you can't load up, you know, Black Ops 2 and be like, oh, I'm just gonna play this with just my friend. You can... I don't know, it's just something about Halo just lends itself so well to that sort of in-person, sitting on a couch next to each other with some 360 controllers in your hands.
That's what works so well. You know.
It's always interesting to me to hear all these stories, because for me, I'm kind of the opposite, where like as a kid, my first Halo game, I think I was 3 years old when I first started playing, but I didn't get it until maybe I was 6 or 7. I didn't get to play multiplayer until really about a year before Reach came out. I got to play some 3. I had Halo 1. I had so my brother got a 360, and like that was his main thing. Halo 2, he had finally been finished with. He was playing Halo 3, so he gave me his Xbox, gave me Halo 1. I played Halo 1 to death for about 2 years just by myself. You know, I played multiplayer with one of my friends, maybe custom games like once or twice, and like I would just explore. And then I got Halo 2, and I was so excited, but I never played the multiplayer. So I just remember like being by myself, like making little stories for myself and stuff, and then like. I would load up the multiplayer maps, and I'd just walk around and listen to the ambience, and like it was like eerie.
Oh, and Forge just made that so much better.
Tom's got like a sock puppet over here. A sock puppet over here.
Exactly.
Like, what do you think, bro? Should I do it? You think I should?
Where's the ghost?
Like,
where's the ghost of Lockout? I swear I saw him in that YouTube video.
Yeah, I mean,
where's the red energy sword?
I completely missed. Oh, sorry. I just want to finish my point. I completely missed like the heyday of like Halo multiplayer and LAN parties, and like even 3. I got to play 3 for one summer before Reach came out, and then by the time I got my own 360, because I was borrowing my brother's for a little while, I got my own. I started playing Halo 3, and then next week Reach was coming out, so that was like my intro into multiplayer. So like, I always wish I could have grew up with like.
Yeah, I didn't play matchmaking
parties
until
and
Reach.
Oh man, I remember the days of. I'm gonna age myself again, but. I remember the days of when Xbox Live first came out, and it was really interesting because there was like 2 games that you could play on Xbox Live. It was Crimson Skies and Halo 2.
Well, I mean, Halo 2 is the only game that mattered on Xbox
And
Live.
whenever you would play Halo 2, their whole idea with how getting together with your friends to kill each other was set up was kind of like how they put it in Aquawood. It was like sitting on a big virtual couch playing with each other. And that's essentially all it is just a big ass LAN party with a bunch of people around the world. But
pretty much, yeah.
Only difference between an actual LAN party and playing on classic Xbox Live, when that first time that you load in and start playing on some of those, I can't even remember some of the maps anymore. I remember Lockout, but
Headlong, Gemini,
Headlong,
yeah.
Lockout, but
Zanzibar.
The big difference between those two was instead of punching the person that just shot you in the face and teabagged you, you had to just call them an asshole and see them the next day and do the same thing.
Miss Precursor, what were you gonna say before?
Oh, it was nothing. I was just gonna join in on the reminiscing. It wasn't anything important.
No, well, no, please. I mean, if you got, you had some experiences. So what were yours?
Feel free.
Well, my experiences were very similar, a little different. Not so much like the LAN parties, but like I was 4 when CE came out. My dad was actually like an OG Halo fan. He was his late 20s, so he was our age now when the first Halo came out, which is a weird thing to think. But like I grew up playing, like he would tell me that I was the Marine in the back of the Warthog, and I always thought that I was doing something, and like my remote was like the snipped off remote, but
the controllers unplugged.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I remember I was like 6, but my sisters and I, like, you know, 2 years apart, like a 4-year-old, a 6-year-old, an 8-year-old, we would literally, and I know this sounds dumb, but it's like Halo has this like ability to be on a nostalgic thing that like no other franchise does, because you literally had a 4-year-old, a 6-year-old, and an 8-year-old playing hide and seek in Halo maps and learning to play like variation, just having fun in a world, even though I never had any friends online as a little kid, you know, 10, 12. I just played with my like friends at my house, but like only Halo does that for me. I'm sure there's other franchises, but Halo's unique that way.
See,
Halo's like definitely like the one that
Hey guys,
brings
sorry to
the most
interrupt. I gotta
people
go.
together.
My brother's gotta get sleep.
It's good having you, Newell.
Dude.
Hi.
Yeah, nice talking to you guys.
Yep.
Thanks for
See you,
being
mate.
here, bro.
Yeah,
I
so
think that's
Can I just chime in with Wolf, because I think Footed, I don't know how old you are.
Yeah, no, I'm 19. About to be 20 in like a few days.
Oh damn.
So I think Wolf, I think you're about 8 years older than me. So I'm 27, I think, about that.
5.
I think.
Okay, so I'm 27. All right. Well, my math was off. You said you were 17 when Halo 1 came out, so
Yeah.
yeah. So I was 9. Yeah, I was 9 when Halo 1 came out. My point in bringing the age up is despite the fact that I feel old. I get called old all the time anyway. By the way.
Yeah.
My point was that, you know, obviously I remember things a bit, you know, like when I first played Halo 1, it was on like a computer that didn't have a good graphics card. So I was playing with literally like wireframes, like just wireframes. The only thing that was really there was the green glow of the Grunt's plasma pistols. Like that was literally like the only thing that was really stood out. And I stopped playing after a while. Like obviously like a couple years later I actually got to play. But I remember like loading up into Halo 2, it did have that same sort of homey, cozy in-person feeling that like a LAN does. It was so ahead of its time and so personal at the time when it came out. You know, the friends list, joining a clan, you know, joining, just it was so good for its time, and everything about it was
yeah,
personal is the word that I really like. It was so personal. Everything from like meeting people online. You've never met this person, but you had a couple good games together. You added each other as a friend, which, by the way, the friends list on that was so much better than like the standard Xbox Live friends list right now, I gotta say. And
yeah, that has gone backwards.
Yeah, you join, and you might join. Like I remember joining games with people that I'd played with a few times, and I'd join, and they had a modded Xbox, and I'd be outside of containment, and they were like, you had 200% speed. There were bombs falling from the sky, like just absolute like bonkers, super bouncing, like everything about the game.
Reach file share.
Yeah, it was so much better.
Well, okay, so that's one thing I wanted to actually talk about. The sort of community aspect of it is, again, with my weird perspective, I played CE and Halo 2 on PC, and before I ever realized they were even like Xbox games kind of things, like exclusives. I didn't get that concept at the time. Is that I always, like, I played with the server browser. There's no matchmaking. You don't get thrown in with random people and then leave and then get thrown in with a bunch of other random people. You played for, like, hours at a time, sitting in a server with, like, people rotating around you. And, like, people would come in and they'd be in for, like, 4 matches in a row and you'd be talking in text chat. And then they'd be like, all right, I'm going to get off. I'll see you later because I'm going to come back to the server in a couple days. I'll be here. And it's like, you'd see the same few people over and over in like the same couple of servers and stuff, and that sort of ability to actually like recognize people. And I know it happens in matchmaking, but because it's all randomized like every match, it doesn't feel like it has the same thing. And like MCC missing that server browser for me is just a huge it feels so weird playing Halo like solely through matchmaking. To me, it doesn't feel like I get the same experience. You get the people who are like, oh, I'm gonna, you know, screw your mother, and like, oh, I'll never see you again.
Dude, that's where people got thick skins, bro. That's where you became a
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Was like getting insulted back then. Was like, bro, you're like 9 years old and you're hearing things that like a grown man would cry to, and you're just like, you're a squeaker. And you're
Yeah.
just like, yeah, well, screw you.
Bro, I got insulted hard in Halo 3 days. Like, I was a fucking squeaker.
Dude, I don't
With
have
your
to
server
server
browsers.
but
With
Whip your
hard, but-
Doritos and Mountain
Lobbies.
Dew right by your side. The classics.
I mean,
If it happened in
people,
servers, you vote kicked them.
I mean,
I bet.
I
It was
remember.
nice.
I do
Teabag.
remember being a squeaker. That is a vivid memory of me borrowing my brother's Halo 3 Edition 360 for a summer, and playing Halo 3 every day, and having to shout on the mic veto every time a map came up that I didn't want to play on, and like asking teams to do illegal team ups with me. Oh man,
yeah,
Yeah.
I miss
remember,
being a squeaker.
Yeah, man.
You miss it?
well,
I miss
man,
being a
I don't
squeaker.
wanna-
It's a simpler
fuck.
time.
What's up?
Simpler time, but yeah, no, I don't miss that.
We
Teabag for recon.
So guys, we are nearing up. We got like 7 more minutes before we're hitting the 3-hour mark.
I love that Geffen is just
Yeah.
like
Jeez.
the Covenant.
It doesn't
are
seem
just,
like it's been that
taking
Yeah,
long.
over
he was
right
playing
now.
with Pelicans a second ago.
We're gonna fix his
Hey.
audio issue because he's not. We gotta fix it. He has individual perms and everything. Yeah, I don't know what's going on either. So we will work on it. I love you. Slower. Just bring it back. I wanna.
Yeah,
marvel
just
at it.
kind of.
Hello.
Oh, you're so good.
There's the giraffes just bombing
no,
it out of the sky. I'm hit. All right. So we're nearing up on the 3-hour mark in like 5 minutes. So 5.5 minutes. So
Yeah, we've been here a
We should
long
probably start
time.
talking about the book, right,
Yeah.
guys?
Well,
Whoever edits this together is gonna have a fun time sifting through all this.
Oh, we're talking about it already. We're like, highlight,
Yeah.
blah blah blah. So,
Geffen is actually a 343 employee. He's right now spoiling
Dabbled in
the
everything.
plot of Infinite with his fingers.
yes,
Yeah, that's Brohammer. There we go.
Yeah,
Infinite.
Geffen is actually the voice actor for Brohammer. Yeah, there's a
Yeah,
Pelican.
but do you know?
Nominate Geffen for live action Brohammer. Look at that thing.
Yes,
bro.
I would do it.
Yes.
Yes, go
Yes.
for it. Yes,
We
get
don't
it.
care
Go
what you
Yes.
want. The fans
Yeah.
have spoken.
Okay, so are we getting close to
It's
wrapping
wild.
up
So
then, or?
we're getting close to wrapping this up. I think I had a question earlier that I really wanted to ask, and I knew I had to save it for the very end. Which was, what are we? Go ahead, Shirley.
Oh, just real quick, there was one thing I wanted to bring up kind of this whole time, that it was something that irked me while I was reading the book, and it kind of is an issue I have with Infinite and have had with Halo consistently worse over time. CE's weapon sandbox is so tight. There's not that many weapons, and everything is more or less useful to the point where there's no
Has
like sort of
purpose, yeah.
double role filling. Yeah, and they don't step on each other's toes. It's pretty slim. But like it's an assault rifle. We call the assault rifle an assault rifle. There's a Magnum. We call it a Magnum. And over time they kind of doubled up on the weapons and stuff. But 343 in particular has sort of really done the whole multiple duplicates of the exact same role of weapons thing. And it's something I'm seeing really bad in Infinite with a lot of really similar weapons. But the naming conventions drives me insane in Infinite. Like the VK-77 Commando sounds like something you'd see in Titanfall 2 or like Halo's. It's the
sound
assault
Halo.
rifle. It doesn't sound Halo. They use these model
Simple,
numbers.
clean.
Yeah, there's all these the Bulldog. There's all these names. It's just call it what it is. And when I was reading the book, I had this nagging problem every time they would reference a weapon because they couldn't just call it what it was. They have this. They wouldn't say like, oh, Kelly drew her assault rifle. It was like Kelly lifted her MA-40 off of its mag mount, and Linda fired her SRS 99-AM. It's like just say sniper rifle.
That's always kind of been the
it's like with,
the
like,
way the
the
books
old
rolled,
books.
though.
The MA
It's every time.
That is
Every
First Strike
single
is-
time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
First Strike is very much like that, but at the same time, I think Eric Nyland was able to. Oh, there's a spider. Hello.
I prefer
Just
his writing for sure.
It
It is
feels like
Halloween.
that kind of like gun porn style, like we
Yeah.
gotta have all
Eric
these
Nyland
cool
was a little
model
more
numbers.
Just,
and
natural.
it's
just
like,
back, just
this
like, oh
kinda-
yeah.
they're guns.
But-
Yeah, it's like when you first introduce it, use like its number or whatever, but then after that, then just call it what it is. Like,
So-
not just be a
Also,
technical.
I just
Lashon
low-key,
Ali, right?
low-key,
Lashon
hate
Ali,
that
right?
back the like special Halo 5 variants that the blue team had. I kind of want.
Nornfang or Nornfong, as the guy reading the audiobook says.
Oh god, that's bad.
I see
That
one.
would turn me off.
So
But yeah, Cole or Iowa would want me to say that he finds the way to get the most enjoyment out of the book is take a shot every time you see the word Lashada Lee, right? Because the amount of times that is in that book is just ludicrous.
So here's my question. And I think I can, if we want to keep talking, I can actually keep streaming. I do. Actually.
Whoa, what is going on? I just look at the top corner of my screen. There's a rave going on.
We have something.
Yo, he's having a
through
party in
that
his
you're
room,
doing.
bro. He's just
I
chilling
actually-
over there.
okay,
He's like a.
I don't
Go
know
ahead.
if I'm streaming on Streamlabs. I don't know if I can stream to Discord as well. Actually, no, I cannot. Okay, so I guess I'll wrap it up only because we are hosting the. If anybody wants to watch, actually,
What we
hosting,
can do,
hold on,
Rex,
let me finish.
is
Hold on.
okay.
We are hosting the newest episode of The Mandalorian in Discord in a little while. So if you want to watch, you're more than welcome.
Yes.
So my question though, I did want to ask this just in general, irrelevant of the time that we're at, was what are we personally all sort of looking for? What do we want in Halo Infinite? Is there a specific aspect, or
let's just talk for another 3 hours?
Yeah.
I want to go.
Like, damn, such a.
Go for
If it's cool, I'd love to go first.
Can we go make some
My
pizza?
answer's gonna be really simple. What I want from Halo Infinite is a competent story, gameplay that at least looks a little more like the original series, which is what I've gotten so far from what I've seen. I'd like to see it go back to M for mature, and I'd like to see it just be a complete game day one. My expectations are very fair. I'm fine with them. I want a better story than 5. I want it to look a little more and sound a little more like the Halo I know, and I want it to all be there and all be working day one. Like, I feel like those are all like pretty.
Yeah.
I think those are all fair, to be fair.
Yeah.
But
one thing that like I want with it, which has been like the biggest thing, and like I've been on this for about like 3 years now, and like I saw comments in our server like one day, and people were complaining like specifically about like the sprint and stuff that they ended up adding, that it wasn't in like the old Halos and stuff. And like what I want to see out of Halo, with specifically being in like the military, is I want to see like the realistic like things that like you'd think of like in a fight. You're not just gonna walk up to the fight or whatever. You're gonna like friggin' sprint over there to it. And I like that. That is one thing that 343 did, was they ended up putting in like sprint into like Halo 5 and stuff. They didn't just make it like an armor ability like they had in Reach. They actually made it to where it was just a thing that you had like stamina and you'd run out and then get it back or whatever.
I feel like the idea was that Spartans were always sprinting. They just had the ability to shoot while
at the same
sprinting.
time.
And I feel like that got diminished, and a lot of people complain you feel slow because they gradually slowed it down from CE. Every game from CE forward has a slower movement speed than the game before it, culminating in Reach being an absolute snail's pace. And I've had people tell me that CE feels like too fast, and they feel like they can't actually control their movement, which I think is ridiculous. I mean, CE feels like right to me. Like, that seems like a good compromise of not feeling too slow, especially with the jump height. It's just like you can move, but you don't need sprint to sort of artificially, adjust that.
Yeah, that one you definitely don't need it. But with how slow they've been making these like newer ones, it's like either like make them faster, put in like that sprint option.
Yeah, the other thing, there's a GIF going around from the Infinite like gameplay demo where it shows where.
Jesus.
Sorry, I just had a car go past. It shows where Chief like sprints to that warthog at the very start, and the difference in speed between him sprinting and not sprinting is almost imperceptible. It seems like sprint doesn't even make you go faster. It just looks like an animation. And it looks really weird because he just sort of like suddenly puts his arms down and starts swinging them around, but he doesn't really go any faster. So I feel like it's an odd inclusion.
And that's the thing, Halo. Sorry.
No, it's like I don't hate it on principle, but I feel like it has to be executed in a way that doesn't unnecessarily complicate things. And I feel like
Yeah.
just having it be
Yeah.
useless is kind of weird.
I think Halo 5
Yeah.
actually did a better job with it because if you notice Halo 5 sprint, it's actually a lot faster and it has like a peak point where if you hold the sprint button down for a while, you'll get to this point where it's like you see like the 2 bars on your screen pop up, right? And then you know you're at like max speed.
Yeah.
And the speed compared to Halo Infinite's now from the demo, they've really dialed it back. Like it looks like there's no effect. There is a clear effect, but it looks like it's really minimal, compared to Halo 5's. So
And I mean, maybe it has like some sort of a gradual acceleration where like the longer you sprint, you get gradually. There's not just like Halo 5 where it's like you're sprinting now, but it like maybe gets gradually faster the longer you go, which would make sense given its purpose for traversing long areas in a larger game world. But like vehicles exist, guys.
Hey, I could
that's
give.
the thing, yeah.
Rex, I do have to step away, and then I'll hopefully join the movie night. But I do want to say I can give my answer for what I'm looking for in like 10 seconds. Basically, more for me, lore focused. I want to see heroism, humanity, and hope, like those themes again. I want it to feel epic. I don't want it to feel depressing. I just those three. It's the most simple way I could put it. But heroism, humanity, and hope, and that's what I'm looking for.
I think just so because I know you got to go, I just want to touch. I'm very pleased with the composers they have on board right now.
Yeah,
I think
me
they're
too.
hell
doing
yeah.
a
So good.
fantastic job of exemplifying and expanding those themes in the music. Because
yeah.
Gareth Coker especially has said, he's come out and he said, this is what I like about him. He said, I compose based off what I see on screen. That's what we need. We need somebody who's not just going to write music because based on
And
the
the
music's very hopeful.
Yeah,
The thing is, Halo is about heroes. It's
That's
not
so
about conflict. It's not about humanity doing shady things. It's about heroes. It's about Chief saving the world. It's about Johnson, saving Marines.
It's about sacrifice.
Yeah, it's about sacrificing the heroes of humanity, and that's why I love to see like Chapov's role in the
Exactly.
novel is sort of a return to form of that sort of heroism and people sacrificing themselves to get the mission done and being remembered for it.
I could easily see the pilot's character arc being him wanting to go home for his own satisfaction and then ending up having to sacrifice himself or give up going
I can see that
home
happening.
or like give up his
For the greater good of the mission or something.
window to go home for a very long time for the greater of the mission, which ultimately is for humanity and not his own.
Miss Precursor, we know you got to step away, so
wants.
Dude, thank you, everybody. Miss Precursor, one of our resident lore masters at the Arc.
Dude, thank you.
Thank you for stopping by.
Thank you.
Well.
Thank you for having
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, of course, we're absolutely thrilled that you were here. So have a good night, and hopefully we'll see you in a little bit.
All right, see you in a bit.
Geffen also, we apologize to everybody. Geffen, most of all, we apologize to you. I don't know why we can't get your audio up, but we will fix it. Yeah, we'll fix it. You are still beautiful. We just like to look at you too.
Eye candy.
So that works as well. Yeah. That's
See, there you go.
Yes, thank
Your
you.
silence emotions like that have done like wondrous amounts
You
of
don't even
like.
need to talk. Yeah, you
As
your
much
body language
communication
says it all.
as like we are with like noise.
We're gonna watch this back, and he's just like his commentary is just gonna be completely
We should
visual,
have
and
just had
all
him
of us
on
miss
camera
it.
the whole time.
Yeah.
I think who didn't go? Tommy, I know you said. Did everybody
I
else
think we're
give you a
in a-
little pitch about what they'd love to see?
Rex.
I didn't.
I still
particularly.
needed to go as well.
I think we're in a
Who
good
wants to
place,
go?
Rex.
Thank you, Jamal. He's looking at his girlfriend off screen. He's laughing.
I had to say.
God. Yeah, I know you did. It's all right.
Why don't you go spend some
course
time
you
with
had
your
to say
girlfriend?
that in the video.
For
They had
those
to get
of you
in
who
there
don't know,
somewhere.
Jamal's favorite quote to me, because he knows I think it's ridiculous and it slightly irritates me, but I love him for it, is I think we're in a good place. And so even if
Yes,
we're in a
sir.
terrible place, I think we're in a good
We're in a good
place. Yeah, we're in a good place right now.
Optimist.
He does
Yeah,
it
yeah.
at the end of like every conversation we have him with
Still
him over
nothing.
VC.
Still nothing.
Side story like
Like
Spartan. The Spartan
Raise it
what?
up a little bit.
Raise it up.
Does it feel like a Spartan?
Spartan.
Spartan.
Ooh.
Could see that
Yes,
happening. They did
yes,
leak
yes.
some sort of thing about that, side missions and shit, but
I want a
We'll
personal
see.
drawing for myself. Whatever you drew, that little smiley face or something. I like it. It looks good.
But yeah, no, so for Infinite, you were asked. I didn't really go
into it. I just want a Halo game. I
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
I want
Sure.
to play a game. I want it to look like Halo. I
Feel
want
like
it to
Halo.
play like Halo, even if it's not just, oh, they didn't re-release Halo 3, you're angry, Bungie fan. No, I just want something that actually feels like Halo. And you
Yeah.
can do new things and still feel like Halo, and it's something that I feel 343 hasn't exactly succeeded in the past, but it's definitely doable. It's not just I want Halo 3 again. I want something that carries the same things into like a modern gameplay.
Bet.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Footed,
Multiplayer is
what's
the lost cause, though.
facts? Footed,
It's,
Yeah.
it's for
So
free to play. It's doomed.
no, you're good. Footed and Wolf, yeah, you guys next.
yeah, so I'd say quite a similar thing. You know, I just want it to feel like Halo because I mean, as much as I liked Halo 5's multiplayer, like I grinded that for quite a while as well. You know, on the surface, it doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't exactly feel like a proper Halo game to me, in
Aim
my
gun
opinion.
sights is a problem.
Yeah, and yeah, I agree. And I'm actually glad to see that's been canned. I think for the most part, I think I'm right in saying that because I think there was only one time the Commando was using the aim down sights, but then the Magnum wasn't using it. Then you've got the other weapons, the banished Ravager wasn't using it. The
I hate the Commando.
yeah, that name is not good, eh?
Yeah, conceptually, I hate everything about it.
Yeah. But yeah, so get back to what I was saying. Just having it feel like Halo, I think is so important. And just if it can feel like Halo, I think that's where Halo will succeed. And the most important thing going forward is for Halo to succeed again because this is Halo's last shot. Yeah. So if 343 get this wrong, I think that's it for the franchise. In my opinion.
Absolutely.
Just not to make
Yeah,
this,
so-
not to extend this conversation, please, but out of curiosity, yes or no, do you think that the Halo is say the game tanks and 343's done, everybody says Halo's dead in the water? Do you think either another studio would pick it up eventually in the future and maybe do something good with it, or do you think the fan game community would really step up to the plate and say, okay, there's a niche now that we get to fill?
Look, so that's a really
I
tough one.
have
It
a great
depends.
answer to this.
Yeah.
I think MCC
I'll let you
will
go.
triumph overall.
MCC.
And
MCC
I feel
will
like you
triumph.
tailored this question for me, Rex, because I've been talking about this for days now. If Infinite tanks and just there's nothing that can be done to continue the franchise as it is now, that 10-year plan is not going to hold if the game isn't perfectly received.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
It'd be like Anthem. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it doesn't matter how much work they put in if it's
Yeah.
off the bat a failure.
Screwed, yeah.
I honestly, at this point, would be perfectly happy to see a reboot. Like a straight up reboot. Wipe the slate clean and actually reboot it. And like I was saying earlier with turning over the lore to people like Star Wars did, doing that with the old canon and continuing the new canon like at 343. So 343 would make a rebooted series and then the community could take over the original timeline.
Real quick, Rookie425 joining us at the very last minute. Rookie's one of our content creators. He does extraordinary renders. What's going on, bro? Glad you could stop by.
Not much. I'm catching the tail end of this whole conversation. It sounds like.
Yeah. You seem like you had something
going
you
for
wanted
like
to add.
We'll just throw you. We'll just throw you on the spot.
So there was another podcast that I'm on semi regularly, so I wanted to watch that for a little bit. But yeah, but
Betrayal. Nice.
Yeah.
Suicide.
Sorry to break it to you guys, but I've been cheating on you with another fandom.
What's up? Yeah, no problem. What's up?
More like I've been cheating on that fandom with you because I just recently started paying attention to the fact that I'm in this
happy
Discord.
you stopped by.
Yeah, for real.
So if you want, you can. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, you had some quick
No,
thoughts.
I was about to say because on that question about people like being in there, like the fan creator community taking up the whole thing, because that sounded a lot like if you've ever known anything about the Half-Life franchise, that's up until Half-Life Alyx, that's essentially what they did, and it's kind of funny. Like there's what was it? No Clip TV, I think, did a documentary on that, and someone in the whole modding community had actually said like Yeah, I feel like if they were to release Half-Life 3, it would just sort of invalidate everything that we've worked on. it would just feel kind of shitty, but
Yeah, what I was saying, it's because you missed the start of it, was if Halo Infinite wasn't to do well, I think it would be like perfectly viable for 343 to just straight up reboot the franchise and have their own timeline for them to do what they want with, and maybe bring in some new ideas and that sort of thing. But to sort of turn over the old original timeline as we know it now to the community and let us sort of carry away with it and do what we want.
sorry, I'm laughing because that's kind of how I've been treating Halo since Halo 4. Not that I'm saying Halo 4 is a bad game or anything
No,
like that,
Halo
but like
5 is.
Halo, gameplay wise, I liked 5. Believe it or
Yeah.
not, I did like 5.
Insert.
I didn't like the
No, I agree
story
with
at
you.
all.
Story was terrific.
My biggest problem was that when Firefight came around, I was like, oh hey, Warzone Firefight, I can finally blow all my rec cards on just sheer fun. And then they had this that was in the beta, and then the actual release of Warzone Firefight came out, and I'm like, what's with the difficulty curve on this? Like, why are you punishing me with full minute respawns by like round 3? Like, what is going on?
But you were saying.
Yeah, but like that was my big thing about the campaign. I was like, fighting Covenant is actually fun. Like, forget the ancient space robots for a second. I mean, fighting the Covenant is as fun as it can be in like a modern Halo, or like a modern, enhanced movement kind of Halo.
Yeah.
And and Firefight was like the next thing. I'm like, it should have been in this day one maybe, but no. I think it kind of brings me back to that question of like, what do we just want out of Halo? First off, yeah, I want the campaign to be good. And second, I would just like more content. I would just like the option, because I'm not a big multiplayer guy. I would just like the option. I would just like to have PvE available to me this time around. Like,
Spartan Ops
Unbroken.
was great at that, but requiring Xbox Live was a bad move for Spartan Ops.
Oh my god, yeah.
Should have been DLC.
I mean, I still can't play Spartan Ops because I have to buy Xbox Live to go play Spartan Ops on Halo 4, and it's like old as heck now. Like,
It'll be included in
Spartan
MCC.
Ops.
They'll include it.
Spartan Ops is already on MCC.
Yeah, I was about to ask, do you need Xbox Live to play the Spartan Ops now on MCC?
Yeah. Well,
On
not
MCC,
not
I
on
don't think so.
I don't know about on MCC. On the 360 release,
On the-
which is the
on the
only one I have
360,
access to
yeah,
right now.
on the backwards
Yeah, you still
compatible,
need
yeah,
it.
that makes sense. That sounds painful as hell.
Yeah.
So
I thought that was a good idea.
So look, it is 11:18. I am going to say personally, I apologize. Perhaps next time I'll let Tommy run this, as he can run it as well, because he seems like he has the ability to run it longer. I was not planning on streaming the new Mandalorian episode, but it got brought up. We're gonna do it because a bunch of people want to see it, so we're gonna go stream that right after this in the server if you guys want to stick around. But I think, yes, Civ, I love you too. I know that's what you were saying there. But if anybody didn't give their thoughts on Infinite, on what they want, share them now or forever hold your peace.
I just want Halo's identity to come back. They've got the art style, and the only thing that's concerning to me is
Type it up.
they need to get the audio back too.
And I think
That's why-
multiplayer is in a scary place right now. The single player is shaping up to return to form. Multiplayer scares me heavily.
Yes.
I'm terrified
haven't
of what that
seen
multiplayer is
anything.
going to turn into.
Yeah,
I was about to say,
It's free to play. It's free to play, and what we've
Yeah.
seen with the skins is putting me in a really bad headspace for what it's going to look like.
We haven't even seen
Fortnite,
anything for multiplayer
too.
yet, which is really worrying.
Yeah,
The
and the
only
way they've
thing-
talked
And
about
it's
how like stuff like the
content
grapple
complete.
hook in multiplayer will work completely differently to campaign. The fragmentation
Well,
sounds
it's a pickup.
terrifying.
Oh, well, it's a pickup, so it'll be like a.
Like all of that seems like it works completely differently. So the
Yeah, it
fragmentation
sounds
of
like a
multiplayer
videos,
is interesting.
The
The only
only
thing
thing
I would
as
change-
far as the
hope
grapple
that-
hook is a pickup
Yeah.
goes, I think it'll be like an optional pickup. Like if you want to forge it, it's there. I don't.
It might be a
think
power weapon on
It
not
might
a power
be a
weapon.
power
Sorry, you know what I
weapon.
mean? Power up.
Well,
sorry.
I don't think it'll be like game changing to the
No,
entire.
no,
Yeah, no, I didn't mean like the grapple hook specifically, but it's like it seems like they have some sort of equipment system
Like Halo
since it's
3.
going to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
since it's going to be included.
It's gonna
That
operate
shield
more
thing.
like Halo 3 than.
Yeah, I hope you're ready for Fortnite Legends Part 2.
The only
Return to
thing
Halo Reach.
I would change about Halo Infinite is the shotgun model and maybe the pistol model because I'm not a big
pistol
fan.
model.
The pistol.
Oh, God.
Yeah,
That
it's just
pistol
not a-
really
They
was
just made
upsetting.
it COD,
Yeah.
dude. It was like I
I
looked at
don't,
it,
I
really?
don't mind
Like,
it.
Yeah.
Not
I
a-
don't
Yeah, it's like having
It's like a
a
one for
top.
P99 or something. It's really
I'm-
awful.
This
Just
may
bring
be a
back the
hot
CE
take. This may
magazine.
be a hot take,
Bring it back.
at least in here. But like, I actually don't mind the sidekick. Just I don't mind its
I don't either.
existence.
Oh,
It's
I
not-
wouldn't mind its
yeah,
existence
yeah.
alongside the Magnum.
Yeah, they,
Right. No,
it's
yeah,
like-
absolutely.
Yeah,
As
I
like a
prefer both.
weaker sidearm, whereas the Magnum is like a miniature rifle.
I wanted to have
Oh,
that
shit.
fat end.
They're like
man.
the
Wanted that
The-
fat end
Yeah.
with the fat hammer area going
Yeah.
into like the Stin magazine. Like, come on, man.
Like
Who
the
needs
like
the
they-
DMR?
Pistol,
The
man. I
Magnum
want the ends
exists.
to be
Just
thick
yeah.
and big like a hammer. I want a pistol.
I
with
want it to be
someone
the
with a
size
hammer
of
at the end,
Cheap
like-
Fist.
Yes.
Just
exactly.
take
Yeah.
the CE one and just upgrade it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just
And I need
like the
that melee
idea.
I need the melee flip back. I need
Yes.
the CE melee
Yeah,
flip
I
back.
know.
Please.
Yeah.
I don't know why they did that.
Plot twist, guys. Plot twist. Weapons can be upgraded, and the sidekick is the Magnum. You just need to upgrade it. And
Just
give
gotta
it
put
a
that little
Oh.
top attachment on.
Yo, yeah,
That's just how it starts.
Sorry,
It's like
wait,
the
no,
gunfighter
they
Magnum.
They didn't tell you they're including weapons.
$5 for the flip animation, though.
Oh,
So,
dude, they're including
Oh,
weaponsmith. They're including COD weaponsmith in Halo Infinite. You have to just like upgrade to a new like muzzle area. and
Go to the
muzzle-
Actually,
Each
that's
Bench.
not a bad idea because I
no.
don't mind that at all. If it were purely cosmetic, if it were
You mean now
purely
you can make your
cosmetic, I would
pistols
not mind that
instead
at
of
all.
having a rifle, you could just use your pistol. You upgrade that shit to a rifle. Nice.
Yeah, facts.
Oh,
Yeah, the
You know, the
Magnum sniper.
M6J is an
Have
actual
you
Yeah.
guys,
thing.
have you guys ever
The
seen?
M6J is terrifying, or the M6I is maybe the one I'm thinking of. The M6I has full auto, like straight up. It's terrifying.
Have you guys ever seen the mod Cursed Halo, where like it's
Yes.
just everything is cursed? Like the pistol is literally you throw it at people, and it does
Oh,
damage.
is that
Wait,
the
have you
same
not
one with
seen it?
the?
Have you not
Is
seen
that
it?
the
Yeah,
same
send
one
that
with
to
the
me.
throwing
limousine?
You gotta send that.
The limousine warthog, right? There's a
Rex,
limousine
yes, there's a
warthog in that
limousine
mod too.
warthog.
Yeah.
Rex,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
I
explain
saw
to
that.
you some of the things.
Mm.
The
Or
ghost,
the grenades that spawn and
The-
that just randomly spawn
The
things.
Needlers, the thing from Half-Life where they might turn around and eat you instead of
Yeah.
killing your enemies.
the ghost,
Oh,
the ghost has a
snarks, yeah,
really
Yeah, the snarks.
the ghost is rapid fire, but whenever it's firing, it spins, and that's just how it works. It just spins rapidly and
Oh,
shoots
that's
on all
awesome.
directions.
It
The
is
sniper rifle, is like the barrel of the sniper rifle is flaccid, so it bounces. It's like I gotta send this to you. We'll watch it tomorrow.
Yeah.
We'll
Okay,
stream
wait,
it
look.
tomorrow.
So we have. I'm sorry, I do have to like hop off and get ready to stream this, and I have to go to the bathroom and get some water.
I have to go
So-
to bed.
So we still have a lot to talk about. So I think
Yeah.
tentatively, I would love to talk with everybody soon because it still seems again like we have a ton of stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
I think everybody still has a lot they want to talk about. More fun in the group, definitely. So.
We'll get
definitely
Geffen to
soon.
actually
within
speak.
within the next week,
Yeah.
maybe a couple days. Whoever wants to join, perhaps maybe because again, the Arc is starting up its own podcast. So we
Yeah, I'm
are,
always free.
We are,
Yeah.
yes, we are going to be talking. You know, irregardless of whoever joins, the Arc staff are going to be talking. So I think we might do another one within the next couple days.
We'll see. We'll play it by ear.
And we'll,
Maybe
yeah,
a weekly.
depends
maybe
on
a
how long
weekly
it
thing.
takes us to like post this on like YouTube and stuff as well.
Yes. So
How long, like that whole process takes.
Rendering this video is gonna be a nightmare. I'm not doing
Oh,
it.
it's
just
easy for
saying.
me, bro. I got this. No worries.
Mm.
I got you, baby. It'll take me like 20
It'll
minutes
take
or something.
it'll take me like 24 hours to render it on my
Nah,
laptop.
I got
Damn.
this, bro.
I actually just got reminded about one of the weapons in Infinite that hasn't really been unveiled. It did get unveiled in Shadows of Reach, and that weapon is the skewer.
The skewer. Ooh.
What?
Ooh, tell us.
Oh, was that the brute weapon that they mentioned can punch through Mjolnir in like a single shot?
Correct.
Because I remember that. Okay, yeah.
Whoa, Halo
That's it.
Infinite
That is-
I didn't
That is
read that
actually a weapon
skewer.
that's going to be present in Infinite.
Oh, Nice.
Wait.
Apparently, according to that book, a lot of things can punch through Mjolnir in a single shot. So I don't know how much I believe that.
I would love to
just play one match of Combat Evolved, and like you'll run into about 10 different things that'll punch through Mjolnir, including the bumper of a Warthog at 5 miles an hour.
That meme that slaps roof of Warthog, and it's just a picture of the CE death animation.
My favorite is sorry, that just reminded me of last thing is my favorite video ever. I think it was Halo Follower. I don't remember. Somebody legit like went out and like hired like an actual like military armor specialist and showed them like a full body suit of Mjolnir, and the whole point of the video was like asking them their opinion on like, well, why does hitting a Spartan in the back of the neck like instantly kill them? And he's like, maybe because it's like a weak spot or something. And he's like really awkward about it because he's like, we're talking about a video game here, buddy. Like, I don't know. And he's like, why is the weak spot like the back of the... It's just like, bro. Like,
there's a game theory video on it. That might be what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, he like was asking this totally seriously?
Yeah. Oh, he was totally seriously asking this guy whose profession was to unironically to make like body armor for people, and he was like, yeah, maybe because it's a video game. I don't know. So he's like, I don't know.
Achievement Hunter.
Game theory.
What about him?
Yes.
Oh, it is. That's game theory.
That's
That's
like
something.
All right.
So it's
extraordinary.
So yeah, it's 6 minutes to 3.5 hours. So all right, so guys, it was awesome.
Yeah,
I think we're in a good place.
We're in a great place.
Shut up, Jamal.
We're in a great place.
So yeah, this was awesome.
We're in a good place, but is Halo? Find out next time.
Yes, sir.
We're hiring him. That's it.
The slogan, the motto. That's how we do it.
Yeah, we're working on all of it. So, all right, y'all. So, this was the first ARC podcast with tons of guests tonight. Footed Ghost, Jarrah Sunder, Shirley, Rookie, Wolf, Geffen, us at the ARC staff team,
Jamal.
Precursor, Halo VFX. Am I missing anybody? I don't think I am.
Jamal.
Me.
ARC staff team. You're part of the ARC staff team.
Oh, damn.
Tepic Fest here, Halo Creation.
I just do want to say.
He didn't join like the
Yeah.
VC, like
This is really important, actually, Dragon. I forgot. We're actually sponsored by Oreo cookies.
Hey.
Everything you're seeing in my background, this entire house, they paid for it, and so yeah.
You're
buy their
sponsored by where?
cookies.
I was sponsored by Audible. They gave me a free copy of the book to listen to, so that I could actually
Just
do.
wait, it'll happen. It'll happen. All right, yo. So, all right, guys. Well, thank you all for coming in, watching us, and thank you all for stopping by and talking with us. Honestly, like this was probably one of the greatest conversations I've had in a long time.
You're very welcome, sir.
Go to audible.com/Shirley.
Actually, call Ethan in here next time instead of him just completely dipping. So,
Yeah, I messaged him. He didn't answer, but it's all right.
I mean, he is in the UK, so it's kind of late there.
It's all good.
We're rather
Next
early.
Next time we'll
but-
be a little. We'll have
try
it
to
be a
make it
little
a
more
bit
organized.
earlier on, maybe like a Sunday or something. So all good.
Yeah.
Civ, we love
All
you.
right.
All right,
I
guys.
love you
Well,
all.
thank you everybody again, and we'll catch you guys next time.
All right.
Easy. See you guys.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
The ARC.